Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey everyone, welcome to the FigureitOutcast for, what is it? It's March 2020.
It's March!
It is March. It is March Madness. That's a sport ball term. But yeah, it's for 2022. I'm your host, I'm Adam Koralik. I am joined by the, what do we call you this month? How about the irreverent?
Effervescent.
Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, let's just go with that. We're joined by Effervescent.
Effervescent.
I know, I'm trying to combine the words. All right, never mind. Rob, hi.
Always a pleasure to be here.
And of course, this is a Patreon-backed podcast, which means that if you are a supporter, you get early access to it. You can get shout-outs. You can pick a subject. You can even be on the podcast. And speaking of exactly that, we are rejoined by Abdullah. Abdullah, welcome back, my friend.
Hello, happy to be back. How are you guys doing?
Tired, but not bad.
Well, likewise. It's 4 a.m. here.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry about that. That's how time zones work, unfortunately.
Well, that's completely fine. I'm happy to be here.
We appreciate you. Shall we just get right on with it? You ready?
Sure. Let's do this.
All right, so as a perk of being on here, of course, you get to pick a subject. Now, the subject you picked specifically was, are video game-related conventions losing their touch? Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. Okay, so the reason I picked this subject is because recently, from March 4th, I guess, March 4th to March 6th, we had the Middle East Comic Con.
Oh, cool.
The reason I asked this question is because, you know, when you're selling, you get to see many different people. And you get some insight. You know, each person has their own story, their own way, their own reasoning behind buying. And also during the conventions, it's common to meet celebrities. I guess that's pretty common. It's well known during these conventions you get to meet celebrities, and so those two things really made me think. Because from what I saw, really made me think: are these video game although it's not really just about video games, Comic Con isn't just about video games. What I noticed is that there's a trend towards a more business-oriented, more than they should be. I'm not saying money's not it's not important or anything. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that it's becoming much more of a business, and it's losing the touch that we all liked it for. And I've seen that reflected through these conventions. People, for example, they're going to during this con we had two celebrities that I personally went to. That'll be Charles Martinet from Mario's voice actor, you know, not just Mario, Luigi as well, multiple characters, and Sean Schemmel, Goku's well known for Goku's voice. I've met these two, and it was an amazing meeting. Both of them were really great people, and I really enjoyed meeting them. But I noticed that most people come in with this bunch of stuff just for them to get signed and eventually sell them. And I believe that that's one of the things that I'm trying to say. It's reflected upon people are viewing this more as a business, so it's kind of losing the touch it had. I hope you're trying to get my point. I'm trying to.
Yes. You know, it's funny. I actually, when I first read this, I thought this was going in a completely different direction. I thought you were going to be like, is there any point to this anymore? We have the internet. Why do we need E3? That's kind of where I thought this was going. I didn't think it was going to be about, well, that's kind of interesting, actually. I didn't think this was going to be about, like, are the core values of a convention no longer really present? And that's a totally different discussion, which is perfectly fine. As someone who has gone to a lot of conventions, I've seen some of them from their infancy. Like, I've been to a few where it's like literally their first time ever. Some where they don't survive that. Some where they're already massive events. And what I can tell you is that at the core of these things, it's usually as you described. It's a basically a good intention to get people together that value a common interest. In our context, it would be like retro game convention, so people can go buy retro games and everybody gets together, talk about their hobby, and enjoy that hobby together. Or you could have a trade show type of convention like an E3 or something where the industry gets together to basically, reveal new games, as was the original purpose of E3. It was never really meant to be the big fan event that it turned into. What ultimately always happens is that for a show to be successful, it has to generate revenue. It's the reality. Human beings decided somewhere along the line.
Yeah, that's something we can't change, basically.
Yes, human beings decided somewhere along the line that our society needs to revolve around the concept of trying to collect paper rectangles that we ourselves make. And that is what we call money. And in doing so, we basically made everything, or just about everything in our society, for profit. So even the best intentions eventually go awry, because if you want something like that to be sustained, it has to be self-fulfilling in its profits so that it can occur, unless you have a Jeff Bezos, a George Lucas, or somebody like that who's just willing to put down and do everything at a loss. Those are different situations, and I think Star Wars Celebration actually did start out like that, incidentally. But that's the point. They start off like that, and then they grow and expand. And if they don't grow and they don't expand, then they're just one-off conventions that don't pan out. And I would say even the worst conventions, I think the most infamous failed convention of all time was it Terracon, that YouTuber who decided to have a convention as a response to VidCon years ago.
No,
and it was
I know. Was that the DashCon one that was in the Internet Historian video, or I may be thinking of another one.
I'm pretty sure Terracon was this girl named Tara who decided, in response to not being invited to VidCon, she had her own convention. But that's a different story. My point is, if Comic-Con in particular started off as literally a comic book convention in San Diego, California, it was a small thing just meant to celebrate comic books, I think, to people in the 90s who actually cared about it. But eventually it, branded, it became bigger, and it became known for all things pop culture, and then it expanded around the world, hence there's now one in either... Did you go in Abu Dhabi or Dubai?
This year, it's in Abu Dhabi.
The sad reality, for something to be profitable, you have to start casting a wider net, which is going to bring people in that aren't the super passionate fans there to express their love and adoration for a creation, such as what Charles Martinet's Mario voice did for you. You're also going to have people who look at it and go, "Oh, cool! I can flip that on eBay." That's just economic reality. Yeah, that's just economic reality. That's the Western world. That's, it's one of those things where if you want those good things, you want those opportunities to meet your heroes and enjoy that sort of thing, you have to accept that means that they're allowed to have the dark side of that as well. It's the same thing with the nature of scalping consoles. If you want the ability to get a console, you want the right to buy a console, to enjoy all that. And you want the right to be able to sell your own property, sell your contents. That means, technically, due to logical consequences, people are allowed to scalp things, even if we all agree it sucks. It's just, there's no way to enforce that. And that's the same way with a convention. I don't think anybody would feel particularly comfortable or safe if they were told it is, there is actual punishments and consequences for going to a convention and not being super passionate for being there. Do you know what I mean? It just seems abhorrent. And that, as annoying as it is, and believe me when I say I agree with you, it would be nice if it was all super fans that are passionate. Basically, if you want to enjoy the convention for the things you enjoy it for, you have to just accept that those people that piss you off are also paying to keep that thing there in place so that you can enjoy it. That's a more positive way to look at it. But yeah, it sucks. I agree with you. It would be nice if people weren't just flipping that shit, but that's how it is.
That's how it is, actually, yeah.
I'm immediately drawn to this, not to pimp out another podcast, but I was actually listening to Pat Contry in Ian Ferguson's podcast, the Figure It Out, not the Figure It Out, where the Figure It Outcast, whatever theirs is called. I was listening, whatever theirs is called. I'm sorry, it's late and I have a glass of whiskey in me already. So I was listening to them this month, and they were saying that they just got back from SoCal Gaming convention in Southern California. It's a retro gaming convention. They were there as guests, and what they saw on the floor was really something that, like, I haven't been to a video game con since COVID, but what they described actually really shocked me. Like, so the dealer floor, where everybody sets up tables, as you said, you and your friend set up a table to sell things. They were saying that the prices on things on the dealer floor were so ridiculously high, like higher than eBay, higher than price charting, like basically, like, to the point where it's just like, how could you really buy something from this convention when you could literally go onto eBay and get it for like 20-30% less than what they're selling it for on the floor? Now, yeah, there's something to be said for a convenience cost or whatever, but I remember always loving to go to game conventions, to go to the dealer floor, and to find things for good prices, work out trades, haggle with the vendors. Like, hey, can we do a bundle deal? Can we if I buy 5 games, can I get like 1 for free?
This is something we actually did.
Yeah, things like that, and that was like the best part. I think,
or at least
the dealers, the sellers, recognize that by going to a game convention, it's like, yeah, you're going to pay for a table to be at this convention, but you're probably going to make more money selling the items for cash on this dealer floor than paying for shipping, paying for eBay, PayPal fees, paying taxes on selling online, and also having the aggravation of people trying to scam you or whatever. So they would list things below their asking price would be below list price for games, and this was just not the case anymore. And like Pat said, that like he set up a table just to kind of sell some of his overstock or whatever, stuff that he just had doubles of or whatever. And he says he priced everything like below eBay, and literally everything at the table sold, aside from like 1 or 2 like NES games. Everything sold, because he had like listed it like he had thought things were going to be listed. So, I mean, that's the frustrating thing is, and I kind of echo what Adam and you were saying. It's frustrating that basically the Western culture is everything is a goddamn get rich quick scheme. Everything. And I'm not opposed to flipping games. I've done that with the best of them. But there are literal channels where it's not about going out game hunting to collect these games anymore. It's about going out game hunting for the explicit purpose of selling them and making more money, to kind of put back into it. We're like, it's not about collecting anymore. So I see like your kind of frustration about like going to a convention and seeing your ideas or your hobbies kind of corrupted by the almighty quest to make $2 on a $1 investment. That is kind of permeating every part of culture now.
Agreed.
You see the point, and as I told you, it all. Sorry, as Adam mentioned, in the end, these people are people who generate the profit. But in the end, I'm talking about the general trend. It's losing the touch, and definitely the people who are passionate should see this. Should see this point, and there must be ways in where, things that could be done, or I don't know if something could be done, but maybe there are things that could be handled in a different way. Things could be done a different way, so that these things are limited. Because, for example, personally speaking, I'm gonna give the celebrities example again. The celebrities I met, Charles Martinet and Sean Schimmel, they were really great people, and I noticed that some people, they have more than one sort of autograph, and they would be fine with it, even though the organizer specifically told us, one person per, one autograph per person or one autograph per ticket. So if you purchase more, you get to have more autographs, and that's fair. But those people, they come, they risk, meeting many people, especially during these times, and it's kind of, it was tough for me to see how some people view them, as just money, a money-making mechanic. Personally, I wanted to thank them to do all these things, because of the passion or what they have done to me personally. The great effect they had on me. But and this is sort of reflected as well on what you said. It's really good to go to conventions to have these deals, for example, the bundle deals, such things. It's not really easy to get those in retail stores or even during regular days. Those are the places, and sometimes the trades, for example, meeting people in the community, getting to know each other. All of these things, I'm seeing a huge trend towards that. Most people come there for a job. Okay, I'll come. I'll get this item. I'll sign it. I'll go to this store. I'll go to that store. I'll see these items, and 90%. I haven't really gotten the perfect. I haven't gotten the statistic right, 100%. But a rough estimate would be that around maybe 90%. I wouldn't be surprised if it was this much. Of people who come to the store tend to just ask about the price, and it becomes more of maybe these people, the reasoning they come is, are they competitors? You never know, because you would be surprised that lots turn out to be competitors, and it just kills the whole vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes, but unfortunately, you're talking about a problem that has no real solution, because the best you can do,
realistic solution. Yes.
The best you can do is kind of chip away at it. Like you said, limiting people to like one autograph or whatever. Now, I'm going to tell you a story of a convention I went to that tried to police this in kind of a way that at first you might think is a good idea, but then you'll see at the end why it was a horrible idea. So I went to Japan Expo Paris in Paris, France a few years ago. Now I was there for a Shenmue 3 thing specifically. Like, I was there to work with Sega and Deep Silver on that project. So I got to hang out with Yu Suzuki and Nanami Suzuki and all that behind the scenes. None of that really mattered. But when I was on the convention floor, I was supposed to try and help, push Shenmue fans to go and, line up for meeting Yu Suzuki, because he was going to do a thing where he got to sign autographs and stuff, right? Now, this was not the fault of Sega or Deep Silver. This was the show itself, but they decided to have a policy where they would limit every single guest to only 50 people as far as like autographs and all that sort of thing are concerned. So that meant it didn't matter if it was Yu Suzuki. It could have been any other guest as well. Now, the way they decided to do this is the way you could determine if you were one of those 50 people was not based on you showed up first, which is the age-old way of doing it, first come, first serve. No, they didn't do something more noble, like you had to pass some sort of I am a legitimate Yu Suzuki fan test or anything weird like that. What they instead did is that every single badge that everybody received, when you go into the con and you have to wave a badge to let them you paid or whatever, it had a scanning code on it, and you would take it over to a machine and you would scan it, telling it that you wanted to see Yu Suzuki, and then it would either say yes or no that you had won, but it didn't really matter, as it turns out, who you actually said you wanted to see. If it said yes, it actually could just randomly generate you to some other guest. Meaning, I could be there to see Yu Suzuki. I could scan my ticket. I could win. And it says, well, you don't get to see him, but you get to go see some guy who played a Power Ranger once. And therefore, you end up with a line full of people that are just like, well, this is what I won, so I guess I'll get in line for it. And so I would say of the 50 people that had won, maybe like 2 or 3 were actual Shenmue fans, where like right outside of that, there was tons of Shenmue fans standing there with like things they wanted signed, they wanted to meet the guy, and they're not allowed to get in. Where the other people who just happened to win are just like, I don't even know who this is, but it's what I won, so I guess I'll do it. Now that's another example of a terrible system, but that's kind of what happens when you overly police it in a stupid way. I don't think there is any great way to actually just root out the truly passionate fans of stuff like that, because you essentially have to police everything about them. You have to police what they believe in. You have to police what they're going to do with it. You have to police what they're going to do afterwards. Like I said, I don't like the overtly, we're going to jack the prices up on everything, and I'm here just to exploit this situation for financial gain reasons. I completely agree with that. But I think it's just a logical consequence of all the other things coming together. You can't really root that out, at least not in any obvious way that I see that wouldn't be kind of seen as immoral. Like short of just like arresting people for getting things signed multiple times, that seems insane. So I don't see how you solve that, but I agree with you completely. It's too bad that this type of thing happens, but I just don't see how you fix it.
There is no real solution, like you store like one solution that might cover up everything, but there could be some, at least some things, the idea that, what you just mentioned, the convention you just mentioned, that was overboard. But
yes, it was.
Yeah, it was overboard. But there must be some sort of fine line. You can't obviously eliminate everything, but you can try out. I don't have any ideas in mind, but there must be some sort of ways people can try to rule out, get things done the way they should. I would just phrase it like that.
No, I get what you're saying.
There is no optimal solution. There is no optimal. I agree.
Yeah.
Up until this moment, there is no optimal solution that'll cover everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at best you can chip away at the problem, which is again things like limiting one autograph per person. But even then, you have no guarantee that that person who got it is actually a passionate fan. And at the same time, you've robbed the potential passionate fan who actually would appreciate that from being able to get more. This is why kind of policing those things in general has two sides to it every time. Basically, my argument is if you want those good things, you kind of have to accept the bad luggage that goes with it. Even though that it sucks. And I agree with you completely. Having gone to like a million conventions, it's nice when you're at these small shows that are just starting out and they truly are about what they claim they're there for before they get too big and too corrupted. So one can argue the quote-unquote solution, if you're in a place where this is possible, mind you, is to go to more of these smaller shows until they get too big. That's not really solving it. That's just like solving it for yourself as opposed to the core issue. But honestly, eventually what happens with shows is they get so big they cease to be what they were ever about in the first place, and they collapse in on themselves, kind of like E3 did. So
it's inevitable.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like a metaphor for like how a star works. It just starts off very small and it's got a little ball of energy and it's trying to create life in the universe. Then it gets too big, it explodes, it collapses in on itself, and it gets so dense that it creates a black hole. And then after that burns out, it forms a new star. It's just like it keeps going endlessly.
Yeah, it's the life cycle of conventions.
Precisely. Precisely.
Yeah.
Rob, what do you think?
No, I agree. Eventually, if the policing is not going to work, it's going to alienate people, and I think it's going to add just a terrible aspect to hobbies that we love. The sad truth is that sometimes, like, the only way these things stop happening is when, as you said, they get so big and bloated and they burn themselves out. If people aren't going to go to retro game conventions because there's policing or because people are there just to scalp stuff at ridiculously high prices, they're not going to go, and those cons are just going to fall by the wayside. It's natural selection, in convention form.
It's voting with your wallet. Like I've said that
absolutely.
many times over the years. And it's true, by the way, about the whole prices being out of control thing. Like I've been to a bunch of cons since COVID, and for the most part, I haven't bought much of anything because the prices on almost everything has sucked, except for a few places. Like I remember I went to Pinball Expo in Chicago, and there was one guy selling stuff, and he was basically just, his wife was forcing him to get rid of all his great stuff, and he just was willing to take it all at kind of a loss. But other than stuff like that, where it's just like a freak incident, on the whole, everyone's charging more. And the reason they're doing that is there's more people interested now that are willing to pay more. However, I believe that another crash of that is coming for two reasons. One, we are pulling out of the pandemic. Things are getting more normalized again, which means, especially when you start seeing more people going back to work in their offices, regardless if they want to or not, there's going to be less free time at home, and there's going to be more stuff that's just sitting around, etc. That's one factor. The other factor is that the largest rise was really on 5th and 6th gen stuff, and in a 5th gen early, more so than 6th gen, the generation that rebought all those is gonna be the generation that's about to start buying houses and trying to have kids. Yep. And they're gonna flip their things. I mean, this is the same reason. I'm not gonna say SNES is cheap now, but it has crashed quite a bit over the last year or so for that reason. These retro booms, they always come in waves. I remember, a few years ago, NES that's all anybody wanted, and now NES is pretty much worthless again. Not everything, obviously. There's always going to be your heavy hitters, but it's now like reasonable again to pick up like Super Mario Brothers 3 for like $5. You can do that now. But 5-6 years ago, it was like $40, $50, $60. It's just how it goes. And I think that those are your two biggest factors. Well, okay, I hate to say this, but the third one is also whatever happens in Europe, but let's not go into that. But, I think it's like anything. There's just economic windfalls. And I think we're done with that particular subject. So Abdullah, thank you very much for providing that. Now we're going to do a round of shout-outs. Our first shout-out goes to Julian Espinoza, Luis Bonilla, Loke, Michael Kelly, and Trey Wagner. Once again, that is Julian Espinoza, Luis Bonilla, Loke, Michael Kelly, and Trey Wagner. If you'd like a shout-out, you can do so at any time by signing up on Patreon. Before we get into our subject, though, I know Rob felt very passionately about something, so by all means, Rob, go ahead.
Right before we started recording, we all kind of geeked out about we're recording this on March 9th, and Sony just had their State of Play, which is kind of like their Nintendo Direct, and they showed off a bunch of stuff. Honestly, it's like a bunch of RPG stuff, which honestly me and Adam couldn't really care less about. But they did announce the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection, which is such an amazing package of basically all of the NES games, all the Super Nintendo games, Hyperstone Heist, the Game Boy games, and the arcade, the 4-player Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle arcade games, all on a single collection with online play, with save states. Oh my god, such a good. The rest of it kind of sucked, but man, that was a really good announcement.
All right, yeah, I'll probably get that too. I mean, is it PlayStation exclusive or is it coming out?
No, it's cross-platform, so it's on Xbox, it's on Steam, it's on Switch and PS5 and everything.
Yeah,
that would have been weird if
that being PlayStation exclusive. That would have just kind of been weird.
Yeah, I agree, but I guess we can use that as a good segue because you wanted to continue to talk about something that we had sort of touched on last month, and that has to do with Microsoft and the Xbox specifically. So the way you phrased this was, How much do we think Microsoft can increase the price of Game Pass before it no longer makes sense for people in general, not us specifically, to buy memberships? So you'll have to forgive me because I'm one of the like 6 people on the planet that has an Xbox and does not have Game Pass. But what does Game Pass currently sell for?
So Game Pass, there's 3 different versions of Game Pass. You have Game Pass for console, Game Pass for PC, and Game Pass Ultimate. A Game Pass Ultimate is combines both console and PC and includes the EA Play, which is like their kind of digital online catalog. So like that's how you get like Madden and FIFA day one on Game Pass, as if you had Ultimate. Game Pass for console and PC both are $10 a month. And Game Pass Ultimate, which includes both of them and EA Play, is $15 a month.
Okay. Now, this is hard for me to approach because already, even at 15, I have no interest in it. But that's me specifically. So
yeah,
obviously,
that's why the whole not us thing is there, because the 3 of us, well, probably have different. I mean, we all have different ideas on what we think it would be worth before it was just too much. But in your case, like, the only way I could see you even really remotely, like, ever even considering trying Game Pass is if Microsoft paid you to take a subscription.
You're not far off. They offered me a 7-month subscription for free, and I turned it down. Now, the only reason I did that is because if you take that, then you're committed to sticking with it for like a year or something, and I'm just like, no, I'm not interested. But that's me. I'm also extreme on that. I just do not support digital gaming, but I know I don't represent everybody. So if I want to approach this from a more market standpoint, I think that what we said last month is that we thought that it could survive even at being charged like $69.99 a month, because essentially that's like the price of one new game per month. And in theory, you're also getting like everything under the Xbox ecosystem. I do believe that is currently the absolute maximum they could get away with in a monthly basis. I also don't think that they actually could get away with that, though. To be fair,
I totally agree that they
like,
would not.
but yeah, I'm just saying. I think that's the cap. That's as far as they could push it. But if they did, they would filter out a whole lot of people. But that's the last line of argument that you could make is, well, yeah, but that's basically like buying one game a month. Now, the thing is, I don't know the stats on this because, as Joseph pointed out, the 3 of us are not your average users when it comes to this type of thing. I don't know the average user and how many games they actually buy in a dedicated year. Like, I remember when I was a kid that, you could have a console, its entire relevant lifespan, like a Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis in my case, and by the end of that run, you had maybe 10, 15 games. So that's years. The idea that you could expect the average user to essentially buy 12 games a year is probably extremely high. Not for us. We are freaks, and probably to the majority of you listening, because you're listening to a video game specific podcast, but to the average mass audience, they probably don't buy 12 games a year. So I would think that's the best argument on paper you could make would be $69.99 a month. However, I think the most you could realistically push it and actually have it still be successful, maybe $39.99 a month USD.
I think a lot of it is going to they're inevitable. I mean, I think we could all agree that it's inevitable that the price is going to increase eventually.
100% agreed
on Game Pass. It's unsustainable, like, especially if they have more and more of the market cornered under there with their third-party developer acquisitions.
Activision.
I think it's inevitable that it's going to happen. But I think a lot of it is going to have to do. I think Microsoft is smart about this. I think they don't want to, scare consumers with a literal 6 times price increase of what it currently would be, and I think the way that they would do it is like to use that old adage of like, if you drop a frog into boiling water, it's going to jump back out. But if you slowly increase the water temperature, it'll just sit in there and cook itself to death. I think they would look at not necessarily their game competitors, as in Sony or Nintendo. I think and their similar services, because I did forget to mention that the Game Pass Ultimate does include Xbox Live Gold as well. So you get your online multiplayer component in that package as well. So that is something to take into account. But I think they're not going to look at Sony and Nintendo in terms of their comparability in terms of price. They're going to look at Netflix. They're going to look at Amazon Prime. They're going to look at Hulu and HBO Max and Paramount Plus and Peacock and all of these different multimedia streaming services, Spotify included, anything like that, to see what they would charge. Because if suddenly, if Netflix and Disney Plus are hovering around that like $12 to $15 a month, which is where Game Pass is now, and there's kind of a unified effort from the video market to bump up costs to around $20 a month. I think they could see that as their in to bump it up then. But
yeah, definitely.
I mean, I think like literally Xbox has spent the entire generation rebuilding public trust and consumer confidence in their brand. They're like really making themselves out to be the good guys in all things right now. So they would never do something as stupid as right now jumping up the price of Game Pass $5. They wouldn't do that.
Oh yeah, no.
Because they would say, "Hey, we're trying to build an ecosystem here across console and PC and mobile and everything, and maybe even other console manufacturers." So they're not going to bump up the price anytime soon. But I think it would, while the $69.99 a month for a single game a month kind of makes sense to us as video game collectors that on average usually spend more than that a month on games, I think Microsoft is really going to look at the other multimedia companies in terms of both music and movies and television to see what the market pricing is for their platform going forward.
I totally agree that the average increase is probably going to be at most $2 a month. That's typically like what Netflix does, like annually they increase it like $2 or whatever. I would not be surprised if that's exactly the method Microsoft used. However, and I also agree with you, I don't think that they're actually going to be raising the prices anytime soon. Usually when that's coming, there's a lot of indicators that you see online. There is currently nothing like that to suggest that Microsoft has any intention of raising prices. But the question itself, it entertains the notion of what we believe the market would tolerate. And so, while yes, we agree it's not going to happen, we're simply discussing what it could be if it were to happen. And that being the case, I would think that I would wager they'd probably, increase the Ultimate membership from like 15 to 18 and the standard from like 10 to 13 or 10 to 15. Because I think ultimately they would probably prefer, no pun intended, to have you on the Ultimate plan. But, hence that it's a bundle when you get both versions. But yeah, that said, I even that, I don't think that would happen for at least another like year or two, if it even happens at all. And, well, it'll happen. But
Microsoft's definitely going to raise the price at some point. But
yeah,
I can definitely see them not doing it for like at least another couple of years.
Exactly.
Right now, they're still building Game Pass and everything, like Rob said. They're still trying to build that ecosystem. So right now, they're still squarely in the, you're spending money to make money down the line phase of this whole thing.
Basically, they're at the drug distribution phase where they give you the taste so that's free and then they get you hooked. Yeah. Right now, there's still too much remaining competition outside of Game Pass for them to start to suddenly start raising the price on it. But as we've seen with their interest in, acquiring things like Activision, they're eventually going to make it almost irresistible to leave that ecosystem. And once they have kind of a general consensus on that point being reached, that's around the time you start seeing price increases. And I agree with Rob that those price increases will likely be minimal. Hey, we just need to bump it up. We did just spend $56 billion or whatever to get Activision, so you got to pay an extra $2 a month or whatever their justification is at the time. But the question eventually becomes, what is the highest tolerance point that currently people would potentially accept? I think that the highest they would ever attempt to go, short of ridiculous inflation or whatever, would be like $69.99 a month. But I don't think they would ever actually try that, at least not for many years. But it would not be outside the realm of possibility if maybe in like 10 years from now, if they were trying to charge $39.99 a month. But that's my opinion.
What about you, Joseph? What's your number that you had in mind?
Yeah, I'm basically, mine was like basically lined up with Adam's, and I say basically as if it's not like exactly the same. Like $40 around there seems like the highest realistic price. $69.99, the price of one game, is probably the max theoretical price that they could reasonably do. Which, I mean, I guess it could get bumped up in the future, like down the line, if the actual like price of a single game goes up for that supposed theoretical max. But yeah, like say, just because of everything, like, I mean, yeah, we know that it's like, yeah, okay, for the price of one game a month, we get basically Microsoft's entire catalog, and they keep adding all their new games to it. Most people are going to see, like, that's the entire price of a game. I can't pay that monthly, even if they would buy a game once a month. Because some people don't buy a game once a month. Like, there are some months people don't buy a game or whatever. Or, honestly, even if they are able to save up for a system, a lot of people might not actually even be able to afford to buy a full-price game a month either.
Yeah, I mean, that's why if I'm talking about the number that I think is the most people would tolerate in our current mindset, I have to look at, as I said, I have to look at other streaming services. Not necessarily video games, but media, audio, movies, television, as well as the price of games. But what I would say is how Xbox hooked me with getting Game Pass was that, okay, I was paying $7.99 a month for Xbox Gold. So double that, and I get a bunch of games on both PC and console and cell phone and tablet. Then I'm like, okay, this is a really good deal. And they keep adding stuff, and it's like, day one releases of AAA games, so I don't have to go out and spend money on a game that I might not like. Try the games before I buy them. But I think if I had to put my finger on a number, it would be $20, because that is still more than any other streaming service on the market currently, but is still low enough that I feel that if you did get, try... And I'll show you how it happened with me. I said, I'll try it out for a month. Because they always give you the first month free. And then I was in the middle of playing... I forget which game I was playing on Game Pass. But I was in the middle of playing this Game Pass game when my membership was set to renew. And I'm like, okay, well, my 1 month's up, but I really want to keep playing this game. You know what? $15 isn't too much, maybe. Or you'll just forget about it. $20 seems to be a good number that monthly most people wouldn't notice coming out of their bank account every month when it's auto-renewal. So that's what I would have to say is $20. I think $20 is enough that people are still going to get hooked on it, because the value is still low enough. You're still adding more things. You get online multiplayer. It's still in the ballpark of other streaming services, but it's still low enough that you can kind of forget that you're paying for it. And I think that's what they want. They don't want to they don't want to throw the frog into boiling water. They want to do it slowly. And, that's what they're looking for. Games as service and monthly subscriptions. They want that recurring monthly. It's like, yeah, they can get $70 up front, but I think people would be a lot more apt to cancel that every month and do 1 month on, 1 month off, or like stop doing it for the winter and then play it again in the summer or something like that, as opposed to just leaving it on.
Yeah.
Right. So, but okay, we have to make sure that we're very clear on our timetables here. Like, I don't see it being $40 for another decade. I want to be very clear about that. If we're talking about in the immediate, like, next 2 years, yeah, $20 probably your ceiling. But if we're talking about a decade from now, that's when I can see it being closer to 40. However, there are a bunch of external economic factors that have to be thought of here, outside of real world events and inflation and everything else like that. We also have to adapt, what is Microsoft's hardware plan? See, one thing that Netflix and Disney Plus and so on and so forth don't have to deal with is they don't require you to have proprietary hardware in addition to paying for their streaming service. Where Xbox does. You have to buy new Xbox hardware depending on whatever version that can be. That can be a $500 machine, $300 machine if you have the S, or some version of the Xbox One, etc. That you have to then build on top of the streaming service. So, Rob, let me ask you, even though it's kind of difficult because you are obviously into real hardware as well, if I were to tell you, like, you have to buy, a $500 Xbox and then you can pay $15 a month, for the next 10 years, would you prefer that, or would you prefer you basically get the hardware for free, but it's got to cost you like $40 a month?
I don't think that, I don't think Xbox is going to be in the market of giving away their hardware. It's like they're always like, the Xbox Series S is the cheapest next-gen system on the market, but it's still $300. You could argue with Game Pass you could play on your phone or your computer, which most people have at this point. But I still think that would be a very difficult pill to swallow. For $300 or give it away for free, or some ridiculously low thing and give it away for that, and then charge $70.
Okay, that's not exactly what I meant. I am of the mindset, and I think you were at least at some point, maybe you still are, that eventually Microsoft's goal is to be off of its own hardware. Like, it's just going to be on.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm saying in that scenario where they're not producing hardware, when I say your hardware is free, quote unquote, I mean that it's built into your computer, your phone, your PS6, whatever it is, Switch 3000, whatever the hell they go with, whatever it is. Would you prefer the idea of buying your own specific Xbox hardware where it's still $15 a month or $20 a month perhaps, or just using Xbox Game Pass on a different platform, but knowing it's going to cost you like $40 a month?
I mean, similar to you, it's like, I think both of us are fans, and I assume Joseph is too, that we're fans of Xbox's hardware. Like, I think we could all agree on that. We like their hardware ecosystem that they've built, not just their software. But yeah, I think, like, I would still probably get an Xbox to play their Game Pass on. But once again, it's like, just because it's on another system, or it's on just computers or tablets or on the fucking cloud or whatever this metaverse bullshit is, it doesn't matter what it's going to be on. I still think they're going to look at their media competitors, and I don't see Netflix ever going to $60 a month. I don't see Spotify or Amazon or any of these other services, bar insane inflation, getting to that heights. I don't think they would price themselves out of the market like that, because they do have the money to eat it,
Yeah, I agree with you. I guess I'm trying to switch this into a debate about how much is Game Pass worth when you don't have to buy hardware versus when you do. That's kind of the discussion I'm trying to have right now.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to buy hardware. If you have a computer, you can play Game Pass. You could play if you have a smartphone that's strong enough. You could play Game Pass on the cloud. You don't have to have hardware.
Okay,
it's still $15 a month.
Right, but in theory, work with me, Rob. In theory, how much is that worth?
$20.
That's what you believe?
Because let me ask you: do you believe that Netflix is going to be $60 a month?
Not for a long time.
I don't think ever.
Only with serious inflation, like you said.
Yeah,
over the $60 isn't what we're talking about at $60 anymore.
Yeah, I know.
If inflation gets to that point, the last thing society is going to have to worry about is how much Netflix is going to cost.
Exactly.
It's about how are we going to afford to feed our fucking families.
That's not a fair assessment. Inflation is unfortunately very natural situation within economies. I mean, there's a time where nickels bought you a whole dinner. Like we're just not. It happens over time. Eventually, $60 will be, unfortunately, like the equivalency of 10. I'm not saying that'll happen in our lifetime unless there's over hyperinflation, which let's hope that doesn't happen. But that's a different discussion. But in theory, yes, eventually there will come a time where Netflix costs $60 a month, provided Netflix as a concept even still exists. Or I don't even think we would be alive for that. But that doesn't mean it won't necessarily happen. But again, the hyperinflation and standard inflation are two very different things.
I'll pay my $60 for my Xbox Game Pass holodeck okay. That's what I'll pay my fucking $60 for.
Okay, so it sounds like were this to happen in 2022, the highest market expectation we agree would be tolerated would be $20 a month.
Yes,
and if this were to happen within the next decade, provided there's no massive external factors, sounds like $40 a month is the highest that would be tolerated. And you are claiming that there is no value difference between Game Pass on a system where you don't have to buy an Xbox versus one where you do. Correct?
Yeah, because I don't think it matters.
Okay, I'm just throwing because I believe that you can find a definite contingent of people out there who would find Game Pass more valuable if it also works within their PlayStation ecosystem or their Switch ecosystem. Granted, those two don't exist currently, that's why, but you are absolutely right, it does exist within the PC ecosystem. But despite that tie-in, it seems like that there's just a cultural difference between the two, but it doesn't really matter. But okay, fair point. Yeah, and I don't know how well it runs on phones. I believe that it probably does decently at this point.
It depends if you have 5G signal or if you have like a good Wi-Fi connection. It runs fine.
Sure. Okay. Well then again, we have no control over any of this, but it is just kind of interesting to think about. Although I think we would all like to hear from you guys. Like, I think more people would be very interested in discussing what it would be like this year as opposed to hypothetically in 10 years. What is it like?
Yeah.
And are you excited for the Xbox Game Pass holodeck? Let us know in the comments below.
I sure am. Whenever that comes
honestly out. that's my fucking end goal for video games. I just hope that by the time I die there's like a holodeck, like a real fucking Star Trek holodeck.
Well, they just like kind of canceled the HoloLens 3, right?
Yeah, I don't want to wear anything on my face. I want it projected with force fields. I want the fucking holograms to go insane and gain sentience and try and take over the planet. Like I was going to say Star Trek holodeck.
Then we gotta deal with what's his face from from Sherlock Holmes. What's the villain guy?
Oh, Moriarty. Yeah. Yeah,
we got to deal with Moriarty trying to take over the ship. I don't want to deal with that. You deal with that. I don't want to deal with that.
I'm just saying, Xbox, be Star Trek holodeck or be nothing. That's all I'm saying.
All right, I'll make some calls. All right. All right. Anyway, I guess we're done with that particular subject. Unless there's anybody that wants to add anything, I'll take that as a no.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry,
I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
but
it's fine.
Okay. Well, I guess that explains why it didn't come up that much last month.
Yeah. right, well, thank you, Joseph, for that. So now we're going to move on to our next subject, which comes from Chuck Shaw. He is at the level in which he gets to pick a subject every month. I actually just hung out with him. This is a side story. I was supposed to go to Mo Game Con Jr. as their guest for the show. I've been to every single one of them. They got me my flight. They got me my hotel. We were all set to go. And then 10 days before the con, the Elks Lodge, where it was going to be hosted, just randomly canceled it for something called a cornhole tournament. Which yeah, exactly. Because when I heard that, I was like, I didn't know that professional anal sex was a competition, but okay. Turns out it's an actual like sport where you like throw beanbags into wooden boards with holes in them or something.
You've never played cornhole?
Maybe in gym class, but we certainly didn't call it that.
Jesus, that's, I mean, well, I guess you don't go drinking at bars and stuff, but that's like, it's like a new horseshoes thing that, like, all fucking millennials play when they drink.
Yeah, sorry, but apparently they canceled the con for that. So,
God,
anyway.
forget the fucking, like, scalpers and shit that Abdullah was talking about with the last subject. It's like, it's cornholes taking over your video game conventions.
Yeah, it's pretty special. But anyway, so they had already paid for the flight and the hotel and everything. So they're like, "Do you want to still come down and just hang out?" And I was like, "Oh, hell yeah!" So I went down to St. Louis. We had a good time. There'll be videos about it on the new Flying and Eating channel. But anyway, I just want to give a shout out to Chuck because he's a hell of a good dude. And now his subject, he wanted us to do some FMK, aka Fuck, Marry, Kill. I don't know why. That's just what he wanted to do. So we're going to give you, like, he picked up, like, 5 different subjects. And each one, I'm just going to list 3 characters, and then everybody's got to say who they'd fuck, marry, kill. You guys ready?
Okay.
It's all video game based. It's all video game based.
Like, I was waiting. It's all video game based. I was waiting for the, like, okay, the 3, like, FigureItOutcast, like, guests, Patreon guests, like fuck, Marry, Kill, Keith,
no,
it's Joseph.
No. It's that would have been much more interesting. But we're gonna go with video game characters mostly, except for one that's just not like video game related at all. But nobody's getting in trouble with their girlfriend or wife, I promise. Okay, so the first one is Mario, Sonic, Crash Bandicoot. Fuck, Marry, Kill. Rob, go.
Okay, fuck Sonic, marry Mario, and kill Crash.
You know what? I actually agree. Because Sonic, he'd fuck fast, and it'd be over. I think we'd done
Gotta fuck fast, baby. Gotta fuck fast.
Mario, like, he's out most of the time, so I wouldn't have to really interact with him much. And Crash Bandicoot, he's a bandicoot. You can legally kill him, and it doesn't matter. So, like, here we go.
What about you, Joseph?
This is not a question I thought about with those 3 characters. That's for sure.
Well, we push things to the edge here, Joseph. We make people think.
Yes, clearly. But I think I'm gonna have to agree with both of you. Adam's reasons just make the most sense there.
Thank you. That's what I go for. All right, the next one up. This might be hard for you guys to answer unless you've ever been to St. Louis, but. Emo's Pizza, which is a type of pizza brand that exists in the St. Louis area. Gooey Butter Cake, which is a dessert type of cake. It's amazing. And Toasted Ravioli, which is like the food that St. Louis is famous for. Rob?
I'm going to fuck Gooey Butter Cake because it's Gooey Butter Cake and it just seems like it would be a good thing to have sex with. Toasted Ravioli is absolutely marry. I fucking love toasted ravioli from St. Louis. And Emo's Pizza, kill, easily. Pizza doesn't exist outside of Chicago, New York, New Jersey.
So, yeah. It's... All right, Joseph, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say... I think I'm gonna say... fuck the toasted ravioli, marry the cake, and then kill the pizza.
Okay. Do you have a reason for that?
I mean, it just seems like I would want to be around the cake or have the cake more often. So, honestly.
All right,
and then the pizza is, pizza doesn't real... I mean, I'm living in Virginia now, but pizza doesn't exist outside of, like, New York or New Jersey or Chicago. Or, like you guys say, with Chicago. I haven't had deep dish pizza, so I'm not entirely sure how I would feel about that, but it is a specific thing.
Have you had a casserole before?
For the record, we do more than deep dish. That's just a stereotype. But we take pizza very seriously, as does apparently, and this is for everybody out there who listens and calls me a food snob. It is completely true. Every person from New York, New Jersey, or Illinois is exactly like this. We all take pizza really, really seriously. So thank you both
from New York. So,
see, exactly. Thank you for being very consistent on that, because every time I tell people from like California or whatever about that, they're like, just eat Domino's. Who cares? Fuck off. Fuck off with your Domino's. No, it's not food.
And Pizza Hut is the pizza you get when you're broke and you just want something that vaguely resembles pizza.
The local places are literally cheaper than it. It's I don't even get that.
All right, well, here's back on point though. Here's where I'm gonna kind of shock the universe a little bit. Gooey butter cake, I completely agree. Fuck it, it's buttery, it's gooey, it's gonna feel nice. But I'm gonna kill the toasted ravioli just because it's so easy to kill. They're so weak, they can't defend themselves or anything. But the pizza, that's actually the one I would marry. Emo's Pizza, I've had it. It is what I call a pizza embassy outside of the pizza states. To be fair, it has Illinois locations, so I think that might be part of why it works.
Oh, so it's a chain? Ugh.
Yeah, it's a local chain to St. Louis, but it exists over on the Illinois side as well. It is. I'm with you, Rob. I completely agree. You should never eat pizza outside those three states. 100%. This, however, is like what West Berlin was to the Soviet Union, like in its heyday. This Emo's is like the embassy of safety inside of a terrible place. That's how that is. You can actually eat at Emo's outside of a pizza state, and it's actually like legit good. I know. Believe me, I know. It took I had to go down to St. Louis like 3 or 4 times before I was even willing to try it, and it literally took Kelsey Lewin to convince me to try it, only because she used to live in Chicago, so she actually knows this, and she was like, "You just have to try Emo's, trust me." And I was like, "All right, you're putting all friend credibility on the line for this," but she was right. So I would actually marry the Emo's. I know people are going to take that quote out of context, but it's fine.
Yeah.
All right.
I was going to say Mrs. Claus isn't really emo. I wouldn't.
Thank you. All right. Well, there you go. That's our take on that one. So the next up, PS2, Xbox, and Wii.
Can I just say this? This is I'm going to complain about the 3 selections. Like, they're not even in the same generation.
Yeah.
Like, it should
2
be
of them
like
are.
PS2, Xbox, GameCube, or Wii 360, PS3.
I didn't write it, man. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you what was written.
Yeah. Well,
These are your
under
choices.
my objections, I would marry the Xbox, fuck the Wii, because the Wii is kind of in the shape of a dick. Yeah. So it's like,
So you're putting the Wii in
things
you?
more
Okay.
ergonomic, and I'm gonna fuck the PS2 because all the good stuff's on the Xbox anyway.
So you just said you'd fuck the PS2.
No,
and the
I'm
Wii.
sorry. I'm sorry. Kill the PS2. Fuck the
Okay.
Wii. Marry the Xbox.
I would fuck the PS2 because it's got a couple of things on it I enjoy. I would
Like
marry...
USB ports.
Yes, exactly. I would marry the Xbox because it doubles as a family home given its size. And I would kill the Wii because fuck the Wii, but not literally. You'd fuck literally the PS2 and its USB ports. But you would kill the Wii because it's the worst thing that was ever created by humans.
Okay, for me, I would fuck the Xbox, marry the PS2, and kill the Wii. I don't hate the Wii like Adam does, but out of the... Well, honestly, I haven't had an original Xbox until like a couple of months ago either, but just like out of them, like the Xbox is like neat and would be... God, I don't even know how to really put this into words, but like the PS2 was like the system that I had growing up, and then I bought the Wii. I liked the Wii, but I haven't gone back to anything on the Wii for the most part, and I have gone back to stuff on the PS2, and Xbox is like neat and shiny and new to me right now.
Here's the thing: is like I've really gotten a lot darker on the PS2 lately. Or when I say lately, I meant like over the past 5-10 years. It's like I did have one growing up, but I always liked the games better on the GameCube and Xbox better.
Oh yeah,
and I
never
Dreamcast
for that matter.
and I've just realized that it's like basically I have probably 100 Xbox games. I have like 7 or 8 PS2 games. I do have a lot of PS2 games on like the PS3, like the remasters and the HD collections and shit. Yeah, I do have those, but it's mostly just exclusive horror games that I have on the PS2. It's like, yeah, Xbox. I just realized that everything that I like on the PS2 could pretty much be had on the Xbox as well, because I'm not an RPG guy.
Yep.
Okay, that would make sense. I mean, I'm less of an RPG guy than I used to be, but like back during the PS2 era, I was super into RPGs. So,
Yeah.
All right. So next up, ColecoVision, Intellivision, and Atari. Now, Atari was not given a specific system number, so I'm guessing you can just choose. He probably means 2600, but technically I'm getting him on a loophole here.
Yeah. I'm going to kill Intellivision because the controller's dog shit, and there's really no good exclusive games for it, at least in my opinion. I'm going to fuck the ColecoVision because it's kind of like a little bit sexier. It's got like the nicer graphics. It's kind of like, you know, the hot young blonde kind of thing on the block, but Atari is like the old maid at home that you just love and you can't leave.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I agree. I'd kill the Intellivision. Maybe you hook up with the ColecoVision. Mine was actually, when I bought my ColecoVision, somebody had covered it in DW40, so it's a little oily, so that might feel a little better. And then the Atari, and then the Atari 2600, I would marry because the Atari 2600, the Atari 2600, I would marry. We'd be in a loveless marriage, but at least like we've known each other for OG. We've been around for a while.
But yeah, but I mean that's like Adam. I know like you like Atari was like your first girlfriend. It's like
it
your
was.
first love in video
so
games,
like,
right? I mean, it's
well,
like
it was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. We broke up a long time ago, but we still contact each other. So again, it'd be like a loveless business marriage, but
it's like Atari's trying to get a green card or something like that.
yeah. Ironically, it was the last console made in America. So, but whatever. Joseph.
Well, I mean, I guess I would marry the Atari, and then honestly, I don't know between the ColecoVision or the Intellivision which one I would put under fuck or kill. I haven't had any interaction with either of them, so like ever at all. So,
how about we say you'd kill the Intellivision because kill has 2 L's and Intellivision has 2 L's?
Okay.
All right, boom, sold,
Yes.
done. All right. And then I guess you're gonna fuck the ColecoVision. That way we're all on the same page. That's kind of
Yes.
cool. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the next and last one is Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Super Smash Brothers.
Kill Mortal Kombat. I've never liked Mortal Kombat. I know it's like heresy, but I just never liked it in the arcade or in console. I'm gonna fuck Street Fighter because it's fast and fun. And Super Smash Brothers is like the gift that keeps on giving. You're like, I want to spend the rest of my life with Super Smash Brothers.
I agree with your choices, but not necessarily for your reasoning. I would want to kill Mortal Kombat just so I can scream fatality. I would want to fuck, Street Fighter because Chun-Li's hot. And then
Dem thighs.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And then I guess I'm marrying Super Smash Brothers because at least, there's like some calm normalness in there. Peach is rich, right? So you get a mansion, it's
get that Nintendo money.
Right, exactly. She's got her own castle. You can go do that while she's banging like Toad and Mario. I don't care. I'm already banging Mario. He's married to him in one of the earlier examples. It's all
that's my biggest problem with the fuck, marry, kill game is that it's like that's under the assumption that you're not going to have sex with the person you're married to.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, or at the very least, it's like it would be like just fuck instead of also marry. But
yeah. But either way, I'm going with Smash just because I could then smash Peach's castle and I could live in that, and that's pretty much it. Joseph.
God, we all basically have the same answers. So kill Mortal Kombat, mostly for 2 reasons.
The irony?
Well, no. Well, yes, I guess, because, Mortal Kombat isn't famously the thing where no one ever actually stays dead. And 2, after MK11, I am not very keen on Mortal Kombat anymore. Fuck Street Fighter because, yeah, Street Fighter's hotter than Smash Brothers in general, basically. And then marry Smash Brothers because, you know, Smash Brothers makes... I think Smash Brothers probably makes more money than Street Fighter has been.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
I mean, wasn't the last Street Fighter, like, exclusive to PS4 or something like that? Like,
then PC.
Yeah.
And was also apparently bad. I never played it, so I don't know.
I mean, Smash Brothers is like what the second best selling game on the Switch. It's like, yeah, you get that money.
Okay, well then there you go, everybody. Now you know what we would hook up with. So thank you, Chuck, for that weird sociological experiment, I suppose.
Also, Joseph.
Yes.
If we're talking about the three guests, like, definitely fuck you.
Okay.
You mean in a good way, or you tell him to? You just said "fuck you" to him.
Yeah.
You just tell it's supposed to be ambiguous. Well, all right, whatever. I'm not going to pick at that one. So, thank you, Chuck, for the subject, and thank you, Joseph, for having a good sense of humor and being on here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for the subject. You might be looking at this subject and thinking, oh, they're going to talk about the new Batman movie with Robert Pattinson. I heard it was really good. No. Unfortunately, we're not doing that because I have not seen it and Rob has not seen it. Keith has seen it, and we don't want him to talk about it at all. But he really wanted to talk about Batman. So instead, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Keith, but basically you wanted to talk about the history of Batman movies up to and not including that film, and just kind of like the evolution of Batman on film. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And actually, also the public's take on who Batman is at the time has to in relation to his stature in the movies at the time as well.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah.
What I'm thinking is, I basically, I could see this over the years just watching sitcoms and stuff like that. If you watch Friends and they mention Batman, they're mentioning Adam West Batman. They're thinking about Adam West Batman the whole time. If you watch a show a little bit later on, they're mostly talking about Christian Bale's Batman. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
There's a point where a certain Batman takes over the cultural essence as being the Batman. Is what I mean, and has effect on cultural aspects.
Okay, so top two movies and our personal favorite Batman. That's what you want.
That's the format we're going with. We're going to draw a line.
Okay.
Bam, there it is.
All right, why don't you start with it then?
Alrighty. Well, when it comes to probably my... it's pretty funny, actually. My very first favorite Batman movie is Batman from 1989, starring Michael Keaton as Batman. And mainly because it was the first time I felt Batman's character, I don't know, it felt right to me. For some reason, it took the evolution that I always wanted it to take, how I thought the character was going to be, naturally. At the time, most people were into the Adam West Batman, and the darker tone Batman just took it from me. Now, the second favorite would have to be, actually, Batman Begins. Now, main reason for that is because I could have easily gone with, you know, Batman Returns, but Batman Begins mainly because of what it did for the Batman franchise, and again, giving it that serious tone that I love so much, bringing the serious tone back into Batman. I always thank any franchise for that. So that's 1 and 2 there. But my Batman, now this is the person I would choose to play Batman on every occasion, is actually not in any of the live action films. He's actually in an animated film. So he is actually in one of the movies. It's Batman Mask of the Phantasm, which is going to be Kevin Conroy, is my choice for the best Batman. He has a perfect mix of Bruce Wayne and Batman for voices, which is very, very, very hard to do. It's actually one of the issues that a lot of people who play Batman have, is actually to actually create a good Bruce Wayne and Batman, different separate characters. And I believe Kevin Conroy has done that the best. So he is my Batman. Batman 1989 is my number 1, and my number 2 is Batman Begins with Christian Bale.
So,
okay.
I am going to echo that point that you just made.
Yes, tell me, tell me how right I am.
So, I'm going to pick two Batman movies, which I think are the best in my mind. One, I think, is the best Batman movie, and then one is the best movie in the Batman series.
I like this.
The best movie in the Batman series is my second favorite, is The Dark Knight. I think it's a fantastically shot, edited, paced, gripping crime drama with a coat of Batman paint on it. I don't think it's the best Batman movie, but I think it's the best film that Batman's been in. The best Batman movie is Mask of the Phantasm. I totally agree. I think that movie does such an amazing job of giving character depth to a character that we've already seen and kind of began to know through the animated series, because I think Mask of the Phantasm came out after season 1 or 2 of the series. It was fairly early on, so you kind of got an idea of what this world was that Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and these guys were making for Batman in the animated series. But this film gave so much more depth to his character, and really serves as the closest thing to an origin story for both Batman and the Joker. Kevin Conroy's Batman and Mark Hamill's Joker from the animated series. It basically provides the closest thing to origin stories for both of them in that movie, while also continuing to expand on their characters and give them so much more depth. Joker is terrifying in it. He's hilarious in it. The animation's fantastic. Like, they ramped up the budget and the quality of the animation from just that show to that movie. And that's saying something, because the show's always looked amazing. So I would say Mask of the Phantasm is the best Batman movie in my eyes. And as for my Batman, I would say it's probably the most difficult question that you've posed, because I don't think, aside from George Clooney, there's been a bad Batman. Like, Adam could talk about the DCEU all he wants and how much it's disjointed and sucks, but I think Ben Affleck is a great Batman. I think, ironically, I don't really care much for Michael Keaton, even though he was the first Batman that I was introduced to. I've never really cared for him in the role. I actually like Val Kilmer better in that Tim Burton Schumacher verse Batman. I actually think Val Kilmer is the best of those three Batmen. But if I'm picking Mask of the Phantasm as my favorite Batman movie, like, my first inclination would be to pick Kevin Conroy, because I do think he is the quintessential Batman, and we actually did get to see him play Batman in live action once, in the CW Arrowverse Crisis on Infinite Earths special. He played like an older Bruce Wayne in one of those, which is cool. But I probably have to say I'm gonna go off the back wall. I'm gonna say Val Kilmer. I like Val Kilmer as my Batman. I think he's got the perfect jaw for it.
Well, honestly, I got to make this point here, that some people do have separate people for Batman and a combination of Batman and Bruce Wayne. When it comes to Bruce Wayne, I don't think anyone played Bruce Wayne better than Val Kilmer, so I will put that in there. No one played Bruce Wayne better. And with the glasses thing was it was
it's
amazing.
a little bit of Superman there, kind of throwing on the specs.
If you watch the documentary Val, he's got back scene footage from that. It's wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah, Adam.
So I would say that to echo Rob's point a little bit about good film versus good Batman film, I will say that my number one theatrical release that has Batman in it is going to be obviously Looney Tunes Back in Action.
Oh yeah, I mean,
if you'll remember,
you can't
no,
go wrong
I
with that in any way whatsoever. I mean, Brendan Fraser is an artiste.
Yeah, there is that scene where he interrupts the film production of Batman. So
I was actually waiting for somebody to drop a Lego Batman movie. That is a good Batman movie. I'm not gonna lie.
But to give a real answer, The Dark Knight is, I think, the best film ever crafted that has Batman in it, or especially where he's the lead. It is, but you are absolutely correct when you say it's not necessarily the best Batman story. It is a crime drama that just used Batman as the
protagonist,
pre-existing character that already exists from comic book lore. And by that logic, we could technically argue Joker because Bruce Wayne is in it.
Yep.
I am not, because I'm trying to stick to a more refined definition of what this really is. But after that, I would have to say that my favorite one, the one that I could watch on my deathbed in a loop, would be Batman Returns. I think that movie is a blast, because it knows what it is. It knows that it's just trying to be insane and that nothing about it really is.
I just love Michelle Pfeiffer. It was Michelle Pfeiffer, right? Plays
absolutely.
Yeah.
I like she falls out a window, gets like bit by a cat
powers.
And turns into Catwoman.
Yeah,
it's a great one. It's a great origin story
so
for Catwoman,
nuts.
who never really had a real true supervillain origin story in the comic books. I mean, they gave her one.
So, it's funny that you mentioned that. I don't know if you guys follow Mr. Sunday Movies. He's a YouTuber. I was actually watching recently. He did a video on the Halle Berry 2004 Catwoman movie, the terrible one. He had pointed out, because they actually show it, that there's this scene where Halle Berry's after she has Catwoman powers, she's researching the history of cats or whatever and cat people or whatever, and you actually see a photo of Michelle Pfeiffer in the Catwoman suit. So they looked into it and they're technically that's part of the Tim Burton verse, and that was how it ended, was that shitty ass Catwoman movie. So there you go. It wasn't actually Batman and Robin.
Oh man, I wish it ended with a good Superman movie. Darn it.
Yeah. Although technically, if we look forward to the future and Michael Keaton coming back and all this shit, it doesn't really matter. But for the moment, that through line is sort of there. Anyway, but yeah, I will say that those are my two favorite Batman films. Dark Knight is a legitimately great film that will probably end up in the Library of Congress and be some sort of archived film. And I'm kind of proud, because technically that was the only Hollywood major production I ever sort of technically worked on. And by technically, I mean I was in college at the time, and they just needed people out of film school to just kind of stand there and guard spots so that people didn't walk onto the set. That was all I did. Not even credited. No pay, nothing.
I was going to say, because that was filmed in Chicago.
Yeah. I remember when they were filming it, because they would have helicopters going over and filming shit, and I got to see the set of where the fire trucks are on fire. Mm-hmm. That evening was the evening we were working on. But anyway, so it was, and I remember the production of that amping up being just amazing, because it was filmed here and they were filming right out of my film school, so there was a ton of people who were getting real crew gigs on it. I wasn't applying for any of that. I was just and plus I was a freshman, I think, at the time anyway. But anyway, so that was definitely a cool experience. But ultimately, the film itself was amazing, and Heath Ledger, of course, I could watch just his scenes over and over again. I think that's flawless. And then Batman Returns, I think, is just an endless hoot of entertainment, for lack of a better word, because it was basically this was still Tim Burton kind of in his prime, but Warner Brothers just said, do whatever you want. And he truly did. He went out and just made a movie that was essentially unreleasable.
I mean, Christopher Walken and Danny DeVito as your movie villains. I mean, it's so great.
The scene with them in the sewer, when Danny DeVito's just going off on him, when he's talking about his partner and everything like that. It's oh yeah, how's your old business partner? Yeah, how's he doing? Oh my god,
how's
that
Fred
scene is
Atkins,
wonderful.
your old partner? I know the lines.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite Batman, Adam?
Well, I'm getting to that.
Oh, yeah. I'm just curious.
Yeah, but so But yeah, Batman Returns, I think, is, I'm just going to say it, is almost in every way superior to Batman 89. I'm sorry, it just is. Batman 89 to me feels like a movie that really wasn't finished. And some of those changes, come from like, the Batman suit in particular. Like in the first one, you can fit an entire like fist inside the space between Michael Keaton's chin and the edge of that suit. It's just, the whole movie felt dated very quickly to me, even as a kid. And now I appreciate it for what it did. And it, as you pointed out, we went from Adam West Batman to that Batman. But if you go back and watch the Dark Knight trilogy and then turn around and watch the Tim Burton movies, you'll realize they are a really goofy half step between Adam West Batman and the Dark Knight trilogy. But at least with Batman Returns, it all kind of just, I don't know, it felt better to me. But I know there's a lot of people that aren't going to agree with that opinion. That said, what?
No.
That said, neither Tim Burton nor Christian Bale are my favorite Batmans. And I do agree with you, by the way, that if we have to go on the criteria of what defines a good Batman movie as a specific story about that character and all that, Mask of the Phantasm probably is the best Batman movie ever made, but not necessarily the best movie ever made, or even the most entertaining one. Those are different subjects. But my favorite Batman, while I love Kevin Conroy, I kind of don't really count him. I mean, I count him, but I don't. I have to actually, this is going to surprise Rob, I think. I would give it to Ben Affleck.
Yeah!
Ooh, wow.
I think that...
I like him as Batman. I really do.
I didn't have a problem with the Batman character. I didn't have a problem with the way he portrayed them or a couple of the effects they did with them. My whole problem was 100% with the way they shot him and the story.
Essentially, I would say the same. Ben Affleck was perfect casting and played it exactly correctly, but he was surrounded by horrific material and terrible filmmaking. and the best bits of that, like, and I'm not the first person to say this, but like Batman v Superman, as terrible as that movie is, that whole sequence of just Batman fighting all those guys, like
to get Martha back. Oh my god,
exactly.
So good.
That's one of the best sequences of Batman being Batman ever portrayed on film, if not possibly the best sequence. And a whole movie of that was sad that we got robbed of that. Now, to be fair, I haven't seen this new Batman movie, and that's the whole point. We can't discuss that.
Yep.
But I do feel that would have been great. But I'm sure that chapter and everything is closed now. But
well, I mean, he's going to be in the Flash movie, I think.
Yeah, he is. He is credited. He is going to be in there. He is credited. But I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be showing up, or they're going to be showing old footage or anything like that.
But is it new material or stuff they shot like years ago?
No, I think it's new. It's new stuff because he's actually brought back on to do this.
Okay, that's interesting because the stuff he filmed, like, to be fair to him, he did film additional scenes for the Snyder cut of Justice League, and you'll notice them because I know this is going to sound horrible, but it is true. If you watch that last sequence where he's talking to Green Lantern, or not Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, he looks like, he went through cancer or something because he just, like, lost a ton of weight and his face looks all shrunk, and they were shot, like, 5 years apart.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Ben Affleck is physically in that condition anymore. He would have to put on all that, and maybe he did. I don't really know. But for that brief time where we got to see him in, like, the full garb and everything, he was an amazing Batman. It's just that the content written for that version of the character was terrible.
Although he does actually have one of my favorite Batman or Bruce Wayne lines in Justice League, where Barry Allen asks him, like, so what's your superpower? I'm rich.
Yeah. Like I said, he was very good at portraying both versions of the character, but I cannot stress this enough to everybody listening. I know you're like, but you've rallied on those movies forever, and they're so bad, this, that, and the other. They are, but you have to separate him out of that. His portrayal of the character was fantastic, but he was also forced to say stupid things for the framework of those terrible films. If he had been given, I really believe that if Ben Affleck had been given the right to make his own Batman movie, and I say that as the director Ben Affleck, the one who made Argo. Yeah. If he had been allowed to make his own Batman film, it probably would have been possibly the best Batman film ever made. But we never got to see that.
Yeah, true.
All right, Keith, next part of this. Go on.
Yes. So we're going to take it back here. We're going to talk about not really like Batman 1940s, where it technically really began, but really
I do like those old serials, though.
I enjoy them as well. But for me, really, Batman began with the movie.
Yeah.
Batman.
Because
we are talking about movies, which is Batman based off the television series. And I can tell you this, in my life, I have never laughed harder at one joke in the history of my life than that bomb joke. I swear to God, I almost fell over. I felt my gut busting. It was the sheer definition of gut-busting laughter.
To be clear to everybody listening,
this is a sequence in the movie. Whereas
no. Just to be very clear, because all you said was Batman, the movie. Like he's referring to the Adam West 1960s film, not Batman '89.
Terribly sorry.
Okay, go
Batman
ahead.
came out in 1966. Burt Ward and Adam West. Great movie with a lot of success. But I'm referring to a joke they have in there where Batman has to get rid of a very, very comically, as the series is, a very comically drawn bomb. It kind of looks like the bomb from Mario Kart. And he's got to get rid of it, and he keeps trying to, but every time he gets rid of it, something else gets in his way. Like, at one point, there's a nun. At one point, there's two people kissing when he's trying to throw over a bridge. And at one point, there's a marching band, and it kept escalating. And then right at the pinnacle, he looks at the camera and says, "Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb." And I freaking lost it. I couldn't believe it. Was the peak hilarity in my brain. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life at the time. And honestly, to me, still is one of the funniest sequences in my life. So I have to note that first because I have to get it out. Because that's one of the main things I think about when I think about Batman 1966.
It's funny that you mentioned that for a couple of reasons. One, that scene in particular you're talking about with the bomb, that production was so low budget that they didn't really try to scout locations and get extras. They basically just set up a camera and then told Adam West what to do. So when you look at the reactions of the crowd, those are just unpaid people who are just walking around, and Adam West ran out with a bomb. So that people are just like, what the hell am I looking at? That's actual real reactions. They just filmed an audience.
Wonderful.
Because they didn't have a budget to close things off and do it professionally, quite frankly. Yeah. And two, I was in Orlando this last weekend hanging out with a couple of guys from my Discord server. And one of the things we ended up doing was watching several episodes of Batman from the Adam West series. So it's really kind of hilarious to bring this back around.
Oh yeah.
We watched if I remember correctly, our favorite one that we watched was the one where the Joker believes he can take over the world by winning a surf competition. And so that the only way that Batman can think to defeat him is that he has to enter the surf competition, and then he uses shark repellent, and it's like that's where that all came from. It's just this ridiculous premise.
Oh yes, the bat shark repellent is a very famous one of the gadgets in his utility belt.
I'm no historian on that show, but I am old enough to remember watching it in Nick at Night reruns.
Yep.
In the 90s. And at the time, in the 90s, it wasn't considered super goofy, but it also wasn't really considered serious. It was kind of, I would honestly say, back then, now maybe I'm saying this is from the perspective of nostalgia and being a child at the time, but the perception of it was not that it is the goofy, ridiculous thing we look at it now. It's kind of the way we look at the Tim Burton movies now, where they're kind of silly and playful while you also kind of take it seriously, which is weird because if you watch the Adam West Batman stuff now, it's impossible to take it seriously.
Not in any way whatsoever. I don't think I've seen anyone try to take it literal or serious for a very, very long time.
But
although granted, I mean, Batman 66 is echoing a lot of the concepts similar to a lot of the preceding films, echoing a lot of the concepts and spirit of the comics at the time. Because this, like, Silver Age comic era of, like, the 50s and 60s was kind of goofy and silly and lighthearted. Like, you know, Batman kind of started out dark and kind of stayed dark in, like, in the 30s and 40s era. But by the 50s and 60s, it had kind of goofed up a little bit. You know, and it had become a lot brighter and more comedic and less serious. Comics as a whole had. That's when you get the rise of Marvel as a more serious, ironically, like, you know, MCU is very kind of lighthearted nowadays, but it's like as a very serious competitor to DC during this time. So, I mean, I think it was very apropos for the time. Like, it's echoing a lot of things that you would see in other sitcoms or movies, like A Hard Day's Night, or, it's just part of it's that 60s zeitgeist, you know.
Right. That was kind of the point I was making, was that it was never taken, like, as a serious drama, but it was taken seriously.
Because comic books were for kids. You know?
Comic books were for kids, but also if the adults were going to watch it, they at least got engaged on that same level that you would get engaged with an episode of I Dream of Jeannie. The stakes were about as high, but you would get into it. You didn't look at it and go, this is ridiculous and stupid the whole time. You would just be kind of like, all right, well, how are they going to get out of the tub of acid? You know what I mean? Like, that was about it.
It's got a very sitcom-y feel to it. The sets and the way they pull off some of the action on the show and stuff like that. If you look at the time frame, 60s action shows look very different than Batman. And Batman kind of looks more like a sitcom. If you added a laugh track, honestly, it would be a 60s sitcom.
Yes. Yeah. The other thing that's really interesting about that show is, I don't know if either of you have ever looked at the Blu-ray set of it, but the restoration effort that they put into that show is insane. So we were watching the Blu-ray set, and it looks amazing. And the reason it looks so good is back in the 60s, it was just kind of standard to shoot everything on film stock. Film stock doesn't technically have a resolution, therefore it's not impervious to all future proofing, but basically you can stick it into a modern 4K scan and it's going to look really nice. Whereas in the 70s and especially the 80s, we were shooting everything on like VHS tapes on TV, and so that stuff just looks like it's all flared up and it doesn't age very well. It just looks bad. And the same problem exists now in with digital stuff, which is you can only shoot it at that resolution, which means it has no future proofing. It can never look better than it already does. But that was the interesting thing about most of the stuff in the 50s and the 60s, is that it was shot on high quality film stock. So it wasn't the TVs that were limiting it. It was just the technology of distribution, which we have better tech now. So you go back and look at all these like movies from that era or TV shows from that era, you can scan them in and get like these great 4K scans that look better than most of the stuff produced now. That's why that Batman show is really weird. If you watch it now, you're like, this looks way too clean for something this stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so colorful. That movie is so colorful. Yeah. And honestly brings together a lot of tropes that a lot of people think about Batman today still, about the everything named Bat, Batarang, Bat Taco, Bat Toaster, you know. And also, a lot of people don't remember that Batman has influenced the comic books, the TV shows influenced the comic books and culture by adding characters. Batman is very famous for the series in the 60s is very famous for adding Batgirl and being her first iteration. So not actually in the comic books, such as like Harley Quinn in the animated series.
And Renee Montoya and Harvey Bullock,
Yeah.
Even the use of Mr. Freeze from the animated series was his backstory.
They completely redid him.
Yeah, what I will say, like just one thought on the Adam West Batman film is that in regards to the series and that movie, it's honestly the one Batman that I can never really get behind. I don't know if I was just... I mean, I've loved Batman since I was, 4 years old in seeing, the Michael Keaton. I love Batman. Read the comics, and I didn't discover that Batman the Adam West Batman until like the 90s,
Yeah.
when I think my dad showed it to me, and I'm like, I don't like this. I was born in that dark animated series, Tim Burton, 80s, 90s comics era of Batman. And it's so hard, like, looking at this lighthearted thing. And that's not to say, it's like, you would say, like, oh, well, you know, it's just like an older thing. Maybe you're just, like, not getting into it. It's like, I disagree with that, because I grew up in the Next Generation and TOS film era of Star Trek, and I can go back and watch the 60s Star Trek no problem. I understand it's a period piece, and there's going to be compromises that you have to make to your imagination or how you're going to, like, look at this. It's like, I go into Batman 66 in the same way, but I just can't. It's the only Batman movie I've never been able to watch, like, in its entirety. I just can't make it through, you know.
I'm sad to say that I actually agree with you. Batman, the Adam West Batman era, I can watch a little bit of. Like, I can watch an episode and get a laugh out of it, but that's as far as I can go with it. Like, I don't want to sit there and, like, marathon the whole thing. I don't really consider it canon or anything like that. It's just kind of... It was a goofy relic from a different era. It's got its charms. It's got things we can laugh at. And
it's
the primary
iconic.
Reason,
I mean...
Yeah,
we
the primary reason...
Yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely.
The primary reason we can get any real entertainment out of it now is just that it's still characters we know, but we just can't believe what we're seeing. Like, you compare the Heath Ledger Joker to Cesar Romero's Joker,
the painted over mustache.
His painted mustache, and his plan is to, like, turn Gotham's water into jelly. It's like, that doesn't really compare. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just not. The stakes are different, and I can't take it seriously. Maybe I'm not supposed to, but I can't. I also can't watch it for comedic entertainment value for more than a couple of episodes before I'm kind of like, all right, the shtick has run thin.
You know what I will say about that Adam West Batman is that I've heard people argue that there is kind of a sequel to that movie in that series in the form of Batman and Robin from Joel Schumacher, because that movie is more Batman 66 than it is even, you know, Batman Returns or Batman Forever. It is so off the reservation in terms of its goofiness that it's basically just fucking Batman 66 except it's Batman 1996 or 1997 whenever it came out.
I think it was 98.
Yeah, 97, yeah.
97, okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. it is, you know, you'd have to ask someone older than us, like, how they interpret it differently. You know, I can only speak to a secondhand story here, but my mother, when I was younger, I remember wanting to watch, like, Batman Returns and stuff, and she's like, oh, it's so dark, I don't like this, you know, that and the other. And she had explained to me that her association with Batman really was the Adam West version. Like, that's what the character was.
Yep.
And so watching the Tim Burton ones, she's just like, this is horrifying. Like, how did it turn into this, you know? And I have to try and look at it from that angle too, because, you know, you take something, perhaps a little bit more modern and you completely change it. Like, if they rebooted The Simpsons and every episode was just like this dark, gritty, like, murder universe, you'd be like, how is this The Simpsons? You know what I mean? Like, it's not the same thing. And to, you know, let's be honest, to boomers, that might be the case, but, you know, interesting nonetheless. We should move on, otherwise we're going to be on this for a million years. So the next Batman movie, go for it.
So Tim Burton gets his hands on the Batman franchise now, and we got a whole new thing. So at this time, the comics have already changed from the Adam West era. The comic books have already changed. He's still wearing the blue costume in the comic books at the time, but he's got much darker storylines, and the darkness is finally coming to the movies. So I really enjoyed the heck out of Batman the first time I saw it. It's the first time I actually heard the term, I'm Batman, you know? Like, said like that, you know, really forcefully. So, that's like one thing.
You know what's funny about that as a kid, and I actually remember this, like, I actually saw Batman Returns before I saw Batman 89.
I did too, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, just our ages, I guess. Yeah. Like, Batman, I don't remember how I saw Batman Returns initially. I think it was just one of those things that just, like, showed up in my house, and it was just like, oh, I like toys. I like Batman. Look, there's Batman on the TV. And then to find out later that like there was a movie before it. And then so I actually remember how I first got that. It was like Easter morning one year, and in my Easter basket, you know, there was a copy of VHS of Batman '89, and then I went and watched it a couple of times, and I was just like, this is not as good. You know, it was less fun, and it was like, rather than it being like Batman versus two villains, it now felt like you're going backwards, because you literally were. That, and it's honestly, it's a more mature movie, which was probably the wrong thing for that age, just because it's like, you know, we have gangsters and all that, and I don't know, it's hard to get into the, you know, headspace of where I was when I was like 5, but that's kind of how I remember it being, that I just didn't enjoy it as much, and I've grown to respect it more as an adult, but I still have way more fun watching Batman Returns. But I will say this about Batman '89, it is when I was in college, I did a short film called Henchmen, which was basically the premise of like, what do the randos who work at an evil organization like, you know, Joker, what is their day-to-day like on a corporate level? Like, how do they keep that stuff running? And Batman '89 was the film I used to explain it to people, because if you watch that movie, Joker is just Jack Napier. He's just a rando guy who works for, you know, the mob, and then he becomes Joker, and then from one scene, just like one scene, he goes from just being like, just basically just has all of the mafia henchmen, and then a next scene, he's got cars that are painted the Joker's colors with his face on it, helicopters that are painted with his face on it, everybody's got custom jackets with cartoon depictions of his face, and I'm like, how did you go from point A to point B on that? And somebody had to do that. Somebody had to sit down and have a meeting and be like, okay, we have to start painting all the cars. Like, I want to see that movie. And that's what led me to make a short film called Henchmen about exactly that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, Batman '89 is dark in a lot of aspects, like the costume, the characterization, and everything. It kind of has this gangster vibe. But it does have goofiness here or there. Like slight fourth wall breaks, like the Batwing going in front of the moon to make the Batman logo. Mm-hmm. It even has a giant bomb scene, like fucking like
66.
Batman 66. You know, it's, you know, it does have some goofiness to it, but I think it's more like the darkness from it comes from its visuals, its scenery, the way it kind of carries itself in other aspects, like the gothic setting of Gotham. You know, I love the set piece of the final Joker Batman confrontation on like the top of the cathedral. You know, it's, you know, I like a lot of that. You know,
yeah.
I do like the Tim Burton movies. I do have a lot of nostalgia for them, but it's rare that I go back and watch them when I want to get my Batman fix. Like, because, you know, I do appreciate them as Batman movies, as a fan of the comics and as a fan of that era of Batman. But I just think a lot of the things that those two movies were trying to do, in terms of its characterization, its feel, its themes, and everything, was picked up and done better by the animated series. And because the animated series was very much in the vein of those Tim Burton movies.
I mean, it's a direct follow-up.
You have Penguin,
that, right?
like, taking on the appearance of Danny DeVito's Penguin.
Yeah, Catwoman's blonde in that one, just like Michelle Pfeiffer.
It's like,
you do know that it is literally
that animated series really takes the 30s mob thing up to like 100.
Yeah,
as well.
That film noir gothic.
You do know it
is.
Yeah, that's
continued in that. Yeah.
You guys know it is a direct follow-up to the movies, right?
Yes.
Yeah, before they eventually went on Batman Forever and decanonized it and made its own separate thing. That was really where it was born from. And it's awesome in that regard. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, the modern interpretation of Penguin comes from Batman Returns. Like, prior to Batman Returns, he wasn't like a literal like bird monster man. He was he was a guy who was like a criminal who just like vaguely like a penguin, but he was really just kind
but
of.
He controlled birds and things. That was like his gimmick, and like they even did that a couple times in the animated series before he was just like a gangster. You know, he was just like,
no. I'm talking about
bird puns.
I'm talking
like
no. I'm talking about before. I'm talking about before that, like the Adam West era. He was just a rich guy who vaguely looked like a penguin.
Yeah.
Well, he wore a tuxedo. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And,
yes, but
and he always stayed somewhere where there was always some kind of penguin theme, and all of his guys, his goons, were always sailor themed too. You know.
Yeah, so I'm appreciative extensively for what the Tim Burton era gave us. Yeah. Particularly with Batman Returns, obviously, as I said at the beginning of this, I like that film a lot more. Funny thing about Batman 89 is there's still this part of me, because I had this like VHS of it that I would always watch, and on that particular release, they only had like, you know how movies would have like previews before them on VHS tapes?
Yeah.
This one only had, to my recollection, only had one, but it was for Diet Coke. It was a commercial starring you know exactly what I'm talking about,
I had
don't
this
you?
one.
Right. Michael Gough as Alfred was trying to place an order for more Diet Coke, and it just cuts to footage of, you know, Batman like heading on his way over to a store and picking stuff up. And like for the longest time I couldn't remember if that scene was like in the movie or not. Obviously it's not, but it's that's more of where I get. But I'm with Rob on this one. Like if I really want to sit down and like really watch some Batman stuff, I will only put on Batman 89 if I know I'm about to watch Batman Returns as well.
Yeah.
And I will only do it if I just feel like having a goofier time than watching the Dark Knight trilogy. But yeah, I would also say, like, if you just want to enjoy Batman as a character and like some good solid Batman adventures, you should be watching Batman the Animated Series and ultimately Mask of the Phantasm.
Yeah.
I will say though, it's like kind of playing off my favorite Batman from the discussion before. It's like I do like Batman Forever. I think it's wholly unlike the comics, like in any of its source material. You know, the way, you know, Two-Face kills fucking Robin's family, and, you know, Robin looks like he's in his 30s. And, you know, Riddler is like the Joker. You know, I mean, Riddler's more like the Joker than the Joker is in these movies, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I love Tommy Lee Jones as an actor. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And I love his absolutely psychotic Two-Face, you know, in this movie. And I do like the style of Gotham that Schumacher is kind of taking with this. It's like
big statues everywhere.
Yeah, it ramps up the gothicness of Tim Burton's like if Tim Burton's like Batman was like subdued because like all the lights are off, it's like Schumacher's Batman Forever. I'm not talking about Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin is overkill in every way, shape, or form. But Batman Forever, I feel like they just turned on the lights in Gotham a little bit. They threw some neon, and it's such like a pretty like colorful like movie just to like look at, you know, just because there's so much stuff going on, you know. And you know, I tend to go to Batman Forever if I do want like just an out of left field kind of weird Batman movie to throw on every once in a while. I'm like, yeah, I like Batman Forever. You know, maybe I'll throw that one on. You know,
see with Batman Forever, you know, Batman Forever to me is the mix of Batman 89 and Adam West Batman. It's like a nice mix of the two, and Batman and Robin is full on Adam West.
Yes,
you know, and that's how I like to see it. I always saw Batman Forever having just enough connection, you know, kind of you know, the lines they say in it. It's got a little bit more connection to the original, and with tone and even the way the bat suit looks, except for the, you know, bat nipples. You know, you don't want to talk about bat nipples, but overall, Batman Forever is just a really fun Batman movie to watch. Yeah. It gives you a great idea of the two people, the Bruce Wayne, the Batman. They go into that a decent amount in this.
To that point, I think Chase Meridian, drop dead gorgeous Nicole Kidman in this movie.
Oh god, that's
like bombshell, 90s Nicole Kidman, but she is the best Batman love interest in any of the films, in my opinion. I like the way she approaches it from like this psychological background, where she's a psychologist. She thinks Batman is fascinating as a case study, and she wants to learn more about his like inner machinations, you know, and how he's kind of built, you know, and his childhood trauma and stuff. It's like I really like that she's attracted to him like sexually, but also she's just fascinated by his psyche. You know.
Oh yeah. And another good part about this world has got to be I really like that the Batman is famous and he's a good guy in this world. Everyone likes him. You know, he's even got tabloids about him. You know. But what were you gonna say, Adam? Sorry.
I was just gonna say that when it comes to the Schumacher era, I really look at them the same way I look at Jurassic Park 2 and 3 or Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. I legitimately think that Batman Forever is the worst Batman film ever made.
Wow.
By far.
Wow, okay.
Like it's not even in the same universe of other types of bad. And the reason for that is that it is told to me that I am meant to accept that this comes right after Batman Returns, which I objectively cannot. The visual style is too far different. And that has obviously to do with the fact that Tim Burton wasn't.
And Two-Face isn't black in it. Damn it.
Well, yes, obviously, that canonically, yeah, you mess with that.
What
by
happened to
removing,
Lando?
Billy D. Williams was recast, which I did not like. Obviously, Batman himself is recast, but then you like leave out Michael Gough in it, and you leave the guy who played Commissioner Gordon in it, and it's just like but while simultaneously just kind of insulting my intelligence by telling me this is supposed to be the same, while every little bit of piece of continuity is essentially thrown out. I did not like it. While it's essentially still being crafted in, it's meant to be built in the same crucible as those first two, and I feel that was insulting. Whereas, so like just like Last Jedi was built in this is meant to be a cohesive Star Wars film that's meant to be a big thing, and just destroyed the lore entirely. Where something like Rise of Skywalker, you're just watching a dumpster burn and you can't help but laugh at it. And that's what Batman and Robin is. It's just, you cannot, like, it's at that point you're so far removed, and admittedly that's because, you know, Batman Forever did that for you, but you're so far removed from the, you know, Tim Burton universe, where the only connection left is literally Alfred and Commissioner Gordon, Alfred plays more of a role in it, but they're barely in it, and it's just like you're just watching Adam West in 1997, basically.
Although, you know, you do bit of trivia, there is one scene in Batman Forever where Michael Keaton's Batman costume is shown in, where Val Kilmer's wearing it. Do you guys remember where that is?
Is that when he's like kind of like half dressed? He's sitting down. He's only got like the torso on or something.
No, it's when he's watching the news report about how Harvey Dent becomes Two-Face at the trial on TV.
Oh,
and he Batman leaps out of the crowd to like try and stop the mobster from
that rings a bell.
Killing Dent. He's wearing. Michael Keaton's
I really want to take a
suit.
look now. I want to take a look back at that again, because honestly, something I just never noticed about that.
Well, there's another little bit of trivia in that regard. Then in Batman and Robin, right before Poison Ivy breaks Mr. Freeze out of Arkham, there's this scene with a like guard just kind of chilling there, and if you look through, they show like a whole bunch of clothing.
Oh yeah,
Two-Face and Riddler's clothes are just sitting there.
Yeah,
yep, they're in the lockup because Two-Face and Riddler. Two-Face is technically dead, and Riddler's still alive in that universe technically.
Yeah, as far as we know, but yeah, they would just be sitting there in prison or whatever. But that's another reason I also like. When I say I like it the way I like Jurassic Park 3. I like Batman and Robin just because you are watching something you cannot believe exists. Like, Schwarzenegger is the lead of that movie, and he's the villain. Like, he's first billed over George Clooney. Batman is not the lead in his own film.
Yep.
Which is hilarious to me.
They did hype
just,
the villains a lot more in Batman and Robin than they did any of the heroes. That's true.
Well, because by that point, and I'm sure you guys have seen enough about this, the whole concept of toyetic existed, which is really, it got its beginning in Batman Forever. Like, the whole reason they didn't let Tim Burton come back for that was they wanted a movie they could sell toys off of. And infamously, they couldn't sell the Penguin toys, and they couldn't really sell the Catwoman toys because they were just too creepy or sexy, and they didn't like that. So they wanted more toy compatible stuff, which really dumbed it down. Hence we got Batman Forever, and then Batman and Robin was just like straight up have the characters change costumes multiple times, so there's multiple toys. And you're just like, you're full into the crazy mode at that point. You just kind of roll with it.
Even Batgirl, who has like 2 scenes, has 2 different costumes in each of the scenes.
Yep.
Yeah. You know what? Going back to the animated series, which I feel like everything is kind of playing off this during this discussion.
It must.
Did you guys do you guys remember there is an episode of the animated series called Legends of the Dark Knight?
Oh yeah, it's a great one where the kids are talking about him.
Where the kids are like imagining what Batman's like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And one of them thinks he's like, the 60s Adam West Batman. Another one thinks he's like the Dark Knight Returns, 80s, like future Batman. And then one of the kids is like talking, and he's like slightly effeminate, and he's like, I think that Batman should wear like this tight like leather thing and have like all of this like color and like in fashion or whatever, and tight rubber armor and drive up walls and stuff. And he's meant to be, his name is Joel in the episode, and he's meant to be Joel Schumacher. And the kids are like, get out of here. It's like, that would never fly. It's like, so even though like that movie, Batman and Robin, is taking stuff from the animated series, namely the backstory of Victor Fries, in it, where he's like trying to solve his wife's medical condition. She's frozen, in stasis. Like the animated series is just like, no. we don't agree with what's going on in this film universe right now.
Yeah.
Agreed. With the animated stuff, it gets kind of tough to talk about because the only one that ever had a theatrical release was
Phantasm,
Mask of the Phantasm, except for Lego Batman, which is a different discussion. But like that universe of the animated stuff gets really complicated very quickly because that DC universe, as you guys pointed out earlier, kind of starts off in like a pseudo 1940s. But as the show got more popular, and then they wanted to tie it in with Superman the animated series, and eventually Justice League, they basically had to drop the timeline and just be like, "Oh no, it's 90s, whatever."
I mean,
so
Batman showed up in
it gets a
Static
little
Shock.
weird.
I mean, he showed up in an episode of that.
Yeah.
No.
But so basically, all I'm saying is there were also a ton of like direct to DVD movies spawned from that. One as recently as like a year ago. Like it still is kind of active with Kevin Conroy still doing it. Although I think he might be done now. But
I think he's actually going back. Bruce Timm, who's the kind of the showrunner of the animated series, is creating a new show called Gotham Knight, I think, which is a HBO Max exclusive, like animated series kind of vibe show where it's like a noir Batman. So, and I think Kevin Conroy signed on to do that. So
right. So basically, all I'm trying to say there is that outside of Mask of the Phantasm, there's been a ton of movies, and we just couldn't possibly break them all down.
Yeah,
we already kind of
spoke
about Mask of the
Phantasm.
Movies
going off the comic books directly.
So
we already spoke about Mask of the Phantasm. Exactly.
To the Nolan films,
correct.
Which I mean, I think if you're looking for a front to back story, I think it's the best constructed.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when it comes to this series, I got a very simple expression. It's like, yeah, what the fuck? Sorry.
Oh, you don't like Dark Knight Rises?
I hate Dark Knight Rises. Sorry.
I
read the comic books, man. If you read the comic book, how could you like... I'm sorry, man. You like that Bane? Seriously? No Venom? Whatever. Sorry, man.
I have so many issues with Dark Knight Rises. Bane,
I hate it so much. I hate that they just breeze over the Nightfall storyline. Like
yeah, well, they're doing Nightfall. They're doing Broken Bat. They're
they're doing too much. They jam in.
They're doing No Man's Land.
They jam in a Catwoman. I don't know. But when it comes to where they were and where they left off, I guess you couldn't follow Dark Knight anyways, honestly, no matter what you could do. I guess I couldn't have been satisfied either way, in all honesty. Yeah. Starting off with Batman Begins, though, I remember I was actually working at summer camp at the time, and then during one of my break weekends, I got to go into the theaters and watch Batman Begins. And when I truly started falling in love with the movie is the moment in the cave when he's got the bats flying around him and stuff like that. It was just... it felt really good. It felt like a really, really good, perfect mixture of comic book and movie finally on screen for the first time in a movie, a theatrical release. It felt like, other than Master of the Phantasm, it felt like they actually got a good mix this time. It was not perfect, I must say, but it was, for the time, it was damn good.
Yeah, and Batman Begins is definitely another one of those cases of the comic books absolutely influencing the films, where Batman Begins is basically Batman Year One, like in terms of like the way it carries itself and kind of sets up the universe. Dark Knight, you could argue, is something akin to like Killing Joke.
Very much so.
And then Dark Knight Rises is kind of that No Man's Land, Nightfall, Broken Bat, era of Batman from the early 2000s. So, I think I did not like Batman Begins the first time I saw it, because I did have an affinity for like the animated series and even like the Burton and Schumacher films at that point, where I was like, oh, they're doing this already. I don't think I need another Batman in my life right now. Justice League was still going on, the animated series.
Felt too soon for you, huh?
Yeah, and I was just like, it was too soon. I felt the same way about that, like I felt about Amazing Spider-Man.
Okay.
I don't need this. And I've come around to it. And I really, really love Batman Begins now. But even then, I still think it might be my least favorite of those three Nolan films. I do like Batman. Dark Knight Rises, despite its problems. Like, I do have issues with it. I think, like, if they had played closer to the comics in certain aspects, I think it would have been really, really cool.
Yeah.
But I love Tom Hardy as an actor, and I like the way he kind of portrayed Bane. And I like that voice that he put on for Bane has just kind of become
it's very good. Yeah,
like I quote that Bane. It's like all the time. Your precious armory, gratefully accepted.
I will
we
say,
will need it.
I will say I like it better than the heavy South American accent. I agree.
Or Hulk Bane from Batman and Robin.
Smash good. Yeah.
So like I really like these three films. As I said, I think as a series of films, I think it's the strongest of any of the. If you're talking the, like I'm going to put the Schumacher and Tim Burton Batmans because canonically they're in together, those four movies, and then I'm going to put the Ben Affleck, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, Justice League in kind of in one together, and I think it's definitely the strongest of those three. As I said, Dark Knight it's a masterpiece of film. I think like all of us could just agree. It's like, yeah, Dark Knight's a really fucking good movie. I think it's so competently put together.
I mean, you could honestly put in a good just action star into the Dark Knight, take all the Batman aspects out, it would be a wonderful film. And that you could not say that about any other movie.
Yeah, it was called Joker. It was Joaquin Phoenix did it.
I mean,
that was
that's a Batman
too,
aspect, though. Was the Joker part was the Batman aspect.
Yeah.
But Dark Knight is what I would tell a lot of people. I've done a lot of acting. And apparently one of my best praises is for my villain characters. And I'll tell you one thing: if you want to play a villain, you watch The Dark Knight, man. You watch The Dark Knight, and you understand.
Harvey Dent's great in it too. I mean, that's
absolutely. Yeah. You watch The Dark Knight because you watch not only two different styles of villains, but also the way they see things.
Yeah.
You know, the two different ways, the total anarchy versus the balanced anarchy, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you thinking, Adam?
Well, okay, a lot because
He's got to go.
But basic, yeah. So first of all, Rob, I find it interesting that you said that Batman Begins was too soon for you. Are you aware that that is the second longest gap between theatrical Batman films? The only longer gap would be between Batman 66 and Batman 89.
I agree. Like,
you're talking 97 to 2005.
But like, you have to realize, like, I'm reading the comics a lot at this point, and I'm still reading the comics, and Batman the Animated Series is still going on in the form of Justice League at this point.
And all those movies, and stuff like that.
And all of those, like, spin-off movies, Batman Beyond. We haven't talked about Batman Beyond. Batman Beyond is fucking amazing.
Will Friedle, baby, Will Friedle!
Yeah, it's so good. So it's like,
that's fine.
It was like, I was just like, I was Batmaned out. I'm like, I don't need another Batman right now. And
now,
eventually I turned around to it. But, yeah.
I'm just saying it's ironic because it's the longest gap we ever had without a theatrical Batman film.
Yeah.
And I actually remember that era really well because the constant rumors of a quote-unquote Batman 5 were persistent. They were everywhere about like what it was supposed to be. In fact, we now know that there was like a plot line about what Batman 5 was going to be.
Harley Quinn was going to be one of the villains, if I recall, right?
Scarecrow, which is eventually what ended up in Batman Begins. But there was supposed to be this thing where Batman it was supposed to be like this psychological thriller where he had to like confront his inner demons, which included all of his literal past villains. And they had gotten so far with this idea that they were actually like already reaching out to all the previous actors who had played them. And Jack Nicholson was the biggest holdup. He was only supposed to be in there for like one scene. But the way his original Batman contract worked, along with this, would have meant they would have had to have paid him like $40 million for one scene.
Oh god!
Which ultimately is basically what killed it. But he was supposed to have some sort of fight with every single past villain in his mind. It would have been interesting to see, but I don't think it would have actually been a good film because I don't know if Joel Schumacher was still the one doing it or they were turning it back over to Burton. I mean, I think it was best to walk away. But either way, you took the best bits of that and turned it into Batman Begins, which I remember seeing in theaters. And I came out of it thinking that is the best Batman film ever made. That's what I thought at the time. I was just so stunned that we had gone from what, as you point out, from Batman and Robin to that. Like, the difference was stunning. I remember not even wanting to see it originally because I was still, like, haunted by Batman and Forever specifically, and Batman and Robin to a lesser extent. But eventually, I remember going somebody and somebody's like, "You just got to go and see it. It is nothing like the other Batman movies. It is like a real movie." And so I saw it in my senior year of high school, and it was amazing. It was fantastic. I could not believe it was that good. Only to be later, outdone by The Dark Knight, as we all obviously agree on, and we've talked a bit about, and I'm with Keith on this, Dark Knight Rises really dropped the ball. But to be fair to them, that was an impossible act to follow. Because even if, you were like, okay, we can do it, we could have done it unabated, we have to make a sequel to what almost everybody universally praises as like a perfect movie, you didn't have Heath Ledger around, and that was kind of a glaring problem.
That was the only thing. If they had Heath Ledger, there was a chance to continue the Dark Knight series properly.
So, yeah. So there is actually, I don't know if you've ever seen the book adaptation of The Dark Knight Rises. It actually has one reference to the Joker in it. Just one. But do you remember the part in the film where they like release the prisoners and everybody goes running free?
Yeah.
There's basically this just one line that references the idea that the Joker was behind some sort of different prison facility or prison, I don't know, room or whatever. Point is, his cell would not open when everybody else's did. And that he was basically going to be the one person in Arkham remaining, and they just kind of give it an audio blurb. I would have really liked to have seen like a moment filmed. I can just imagine Bane walking around in that coat with his hands kind of up by his chest like he always does, and there's some little peon walking with him. He's got like a list, and he's like we opened the doors, sir, but like we can't figure this out. There's this one door, we can't figure it out, we can't make it work. And he's walking over, and they go and see this one cell, and they can't see inside of it. It's like, you can just kind of hear it, and you can just hear the Joker like laughing back there from like recycled audio that it would have had from Dark Knight. And Bane has to say something to the effect of like, maybe we best not interrupt with this one, or maybe we leave this one alone. I would have liked some in-movie explanation as to what happened there. Like, we know off camera what happened, but in camera it would have been nice to have some sort of narrative reason what happened to Joker. Yeah. And I think that would have satisfied it for a lot of people. Now that's just one problem, but unfortunately it's a very glaring problem, because even within the movie's own logic of they released all the prisoners, it's like, okay, so releasing the Joker is a big deal and would probably actually cause Bane a million issues, because Joker would have been just as likely to fight Bane as he would have been to fight Batman. Yeah. Because the whole idea, he hated structured plans. And if anybody had some weird structured plan, it was the guy who said, let's hold an island hostage for 5 months under this weird, like, goofy idea that he had. So I really feel like they needed to address Joker, and I guess they just didn't want to do it. So that was a huge flaw. And the other thing is, I feel like that whole movie just kind of needed a couple extra drafts, and we know now that Nolan actually agreed with that. But when he had David S. Goyer go to do some rewrites on it, he ended up writing Man of Steel instead. And he never ended up getting back around to doing the rewrites. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of why that movie gets a little goofy towards the end, and I feel like just isn't the best conclusion for that universe that we could have had. But I'm also approaching it from the fantasy standpoint of I would have loved to have had that happen with Heath Ledger, which was impossible.
I think Rises suffers from a lot of the same issues as Return of the Jedi in terms of following the best film in the franchise and trying to one-up it, trying to raise the stakes, but kind of falling flat in certain aspects. Other aspects, I think like it really did, hit it out of the park, but it kind of fails spectacularly. It fails with style, like in the ways it does fail, and and to that same way, it's like I love Return of the Jedi, but I recognize that it's not probably the worst movie in that trilogy. Yeah.
It's interesting you put it that way, because they both have one thing in common, which is that their creator was intentionally holding them back for weird reasons. Like Return of the Jedi, George Lucas intentionally held back on certain decisions because he wanted to be able to sell toys of stuff, which is why Han Solo isn't actually dead like he was supposed to be, why the Ewoks suddenly became, like teddy bears instead of like vicious monsters. And why, according to Gary Kurtz anyway, he was like basically the mother of Star Wars, why it didn't end at all like it was supposed to. Mm-hmm. Like at the end of it originally, like Leia was supposed to go off and join the Empire. Like it was supposed to be very different.
Yeah.
But in this case, George decided he was done, and he just was like, I'm out, and let's just make some toy money and call it a day. Where Dark Knight Rises was really, if you watched a lot of the stuff that was happening around that time, he was just done with Batman. He just didn't want to do this anymore. He was just kind of contractually locked into a third one. And I feel like he ended it in such a way that nobody would ever really be requesting Christian Bale's Batman to come back. Hence, they have that whole joke about Robin at the end with Brian, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And to be fair to that worked. I mean, I have not heard anybody since 2013 ask if we were going to get a Joseph Gordon-Levitt Batman movie.
I thought for one hot second, when Man of Steel came out and it was being done by Nolan was involved in that, granted in a very minor way, and then that they were going to set up a Batman v Superman.
It did seem like that
film.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, are they kind of laying the groundwork for Bale to come back and have this be in the same universe, because there were enough kind of. And then I realized very soon after, I'm like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that.
I kind of had that. I had that inkling for a second.
You're half right. That actually did happen, but it didn't happen around Man of Steel. It happened around Superman Returns.
Oh, really?
Do you remember this?
They were about the same time.
Batman Begins was 2005. Yeah. Superman Returns was 2006. And it was actually the movie I Am Legend, 2006, which had a Batman v Superman promo in it.
Yes, it was. Yeah, Easter egg,
the idea was that this was before Dark Knight, by the way, but the idea was that they were setting both of those characters up and they were going to have them go in directions and then they could eventually cross paths. So presumably the Donnerverse would have been the same eventual universe as Christian Bale's Batman, but that's not the direction it ultimately went because Superman Returns didn't end up doing all that well. And then Christopher Nolan ended up making The Dark Knight, which was, of course, this legendary big hit. And so they were like, Batman's untouchable. He has to just be his own self-contained thing. And the success of that trilogy is ultimately what caused like all of DCEU's problems and why they're behind Marvel by like a decade as far as all that goes. Because they had to finish out that trilogy before starting to combine stuff. Hence, if we're ready, we can talk about the next phase.
Oh, goodness.
I think it's difficult to even call this a phase because really there's half a Batman movie.
It's like Ben Affleck's phase is like the Affleck phase.
There's never been a Ben Affleck Batman movie.
Yeah, no.
He played Batman in other films. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a shame. I think, like Adam really put it eloquently earlier, he says, like, if Ben Affleck was allowed to direct and act and write his own Batman movie, it could have been the best Batman movie ever made.
I definitely think, especially if he was going off of, which it seemed like The Dark Knight Returns, kind of the 80s style of Batman. With, especially I wanted to see, I was very interested, because they laid that Easter egg with the Robin suit there really well. And in all honesty, Ben Affleck created a Bruce Wayne for me that I could actually see some history, and I was really, really, really impressed with Ben Affleck's job there, I must say. Yeah. I could see Bruce Wayne's pain. I could almost like the story they had. I mean, why was the Wayne Manor burnt down? I mean, all this stuff. I had so many questions with that Batman.
He deserved his own movie. He deserved a better Joker.
Oh my God!
Yes. Oh my God! Yes.
And I think he deserved a lot more. Yeah. And I think it's difficult. This is the biggest what if Batman ever. I think you saw like Nolan's and you saw Burton's and Schumacher's really visions for Batman and kind of like how they set up their universe. You did not see this. You saw glimpses, and what I did saw intrigued me. And I wanted to see more, but everything surrounding it really poisoned the well. And it poisoned the well not just for us as fans of Batman, but it poisoned the well for Ben Affleck himself, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to sour him on the situation in general. I mean, that whole situation seemed like... you could actually see... there's that very famous meme of Ben Affleck,
Sad Affleck, yeah.
Dude, Sad Affleck, I swear to God, that's like... I think about that meme the whole entire time whenever I watch those, like, the actual movies.
Yeah, because, I mean, I loved Jeremy Irons as Alfred. I thought that was a really inspired casting. Mm-hmm. I like the aesthetics of his suit and everything. It's right out of Dark Knight Dark Knight Returns. Mm-hmm. I liked his Batmobile. Like, I mean, I loved him as Bruce Wayne. I loved him as Batman, and it's a shame.
I like that. Honestly, he burnt bat symbols into stoolies to honestly get them. I mean, he's not killing them, but they're going to end up dying. Yeah, that's the darkest Batman we've seen on screen. That's a good way to put it. I think that's live action, probably the darkest Batman we've seen. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's at his best in the Snyder cut of Justice League.
Agreed.
And it's Yeah, it's really a shame that we just never got that dedicated movie, and probably never will.
No, we never.
I mean, you never know.
That movie had to have been.
You know, the way the DCEU's structuring now, and kind of like doubling back on certain things, taking scenic routes on others. You know, or branching out and doing a Robert Pattinson Batman here and a Peacemaker here, and kind of like.
I would give anything for Ben Affleck's Joker to actually be Joaquin Phoenix. Actually,
I don't think that would add up because Phoenix's Joker takes place in the 70s, and he would have to be like 60 years old.
It would not work out. In particular, it's just that dang show scene reminded me so much of The Dark Knight Returns. You know, in the Joker. It's just I was getting that vibe all day.
I don't think Joaquin Phoenix would do it. The only reason he did that movie was he wanted to do a movie about mental health. He actively did not want to do.
It was actually a wonderful mental health movie. I tell a lot of people that's honestly just watch it for that aspect alone. It's wonderful.
Yeah, apparently the director of that film didn't want to make a comic book movie either. Neither of them did, but the director talked Joaquin Phoenix into it. He was like, "Look, we can make a mental health movie. We'll paint it with a coat of DC so that Warner Brothers will fund it. But this is a movie about mental health." And that's all they really did. And then it worked very well. I agree with Rob that unless there's like a portal that brings him into a different time frame, it's not going to work.
It's a pie in the sky dream. It's just like a retcon. It's like I wish I could have had that style Joker with Ben Affleck's Batman. You know what I mean? If I could just
I agree. Yeah, I think
he's
aside from Heath Ledger, he was the best Joker. And we're not including Mark Hamill. It's a separate thing.
Yeah, separate thing, yeah.
But
you can't really compare the abilities to voice act and modulate your voice when modulating voice and body at the same time. It's two different things.
Yeah. Also, to be fair, it depends on what you're asking of him. Like, Jack Nicholson's Joker is not bad because he's supposed to be like a gangster, but he is the least interesting of all of the live-action Jokers because the movie wanted him to be the least interesting. Mm-hmm. It wanted him to just be a gangster instead of like a psychotic.
I'm sorry, are you forgetting the SoundCloud rapper that has "damaged" tattooed on his forehead as Joker?
Well, okay. I aside from I guess I did forget. He's so forgettable. He's so forgettable.
Dude.
Yeah, you're right. He's so forgettable that I legit did not remember he existed. We just talked about him.
Even Suicide Squad had the decency of just like seeing him and just being like, "Oh no, we got to cut his scenes out, man."
Yeah.
This is bad.
Dude, there's
you know what's really
Cesar
weird?
Romero is looking a lot better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm like suddenly the mustache doesn't seem like that big a deal.
No, he's got the paint on there. It's okay. I can see it.
You know what's really weird about the DC like EU era is that Batman does not have his own movie, but Harley Quinn does.
Yeah,
she has two. She has two movies.
What are the two?
Technically three. If you're looking at Birds of Prey.
I thought the Birds of Prey one was Harley Quinn's movie.
Yeah.
Yes, Birds of Prey is the one I'm talking about.
Movies. She's the main.
Like
character.
I thought like the Suicide Squad movies were pretty much her.
But they're not. Their
Suicide movie was her movie.
But I mean, by that logic, Batman v Superman, his name's in the title.
You got a point. Sorry, you're right.
So all I'm saying is like, that like, there's an entire Harley Quinn theatrical feature, in addition to two movies where she has a ton of screen time.
There's an Aquaman movie.
There is, but there is no Batman movie in that whole thing.
And the like, Aquaman movie was good.
It was good.
We'd be talking for hours, and I've already done this over the years, but like the DCEU is just depressing, so we won't continue with that. I guess the only one left to talk about, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're not talking about the new one because we can't. Lego Batman.
Oh yes, Lego Batman. Lego Batman was fun. You know, it brought Batman, you know, back to it being a kid's property again, kind of. You know what I'm saying? The Brave and the Bold style. So, you know, a lot of kids really got into Batman that way, and it was more acceptable. I guess there's something good out of it. It was fun.
I mean, those Lego movies are better than they have any right to be, but I that's all I could say about it. It's you know, it's like a standalone kind of funny animated movie for kids. Yeah, I
hated it.
It was way more popular than I thought it would be. That's for sure.
I remember actively being bored and annoyed by that film. I only watched it once. Now, granted, I'm not even close to the right age range that it goes for. I did like the Lego movie, But the Lego Batman movie felt like way too cynical of like, hey, let's take all these IPs we own and throw them into the same movie and put it under the name Batman because he's really popular right now. I hated it. I just found it gross, and boring. So that's all I can really say about it. But it's still not worse than Batman Forever.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, well, technically there are other Batman movies but they're just movies that weren't theatrically released, like we said earlier.
Yeah, we're trying to limit it to theatrical.
I do want to talk
ones,
about
yeah.
the one. There is one movie that's based off the animated series they made later on, not Master of the Phantasm, but Sub-Zero. Did you guys see that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Honestly, yeah, it's not
right.
bad. So check that one out too, guys. It's not too bad. But
Yeah,
that's.
I mean, they did. Yeah, they did Sub-Zero. They did the
Mystery of the Batwoman.
Mystery of the Batwoman. Return of the Joker.
Oh, that was one I wish they had a theatrical release
really
almost.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them. There was a Harley Quinn one like a few years ago where she has sex with Robin and like farts in the Batmobile.
Yeah, she practically rapes Nightwing. Is basically what happens.
Yeah,
almost.
Nightwing. Whatever.
We don't talk about that.
No, yeah, that was.
It's really weird to think that that's canon, like with the other events that we've seen.
Oh my god. Yeah, so
like,
that's pretty much that's Batman the movies, guys. I'm definitely up to I'm definitely up to donate a little blurb on the new Batman once you guys finally see it.
Yeah,
if we ever
I can't wait. I'm probably going to see it next week, and I've heard nothing but good things about it. I'm very excited to.
I'm just going to wait till it's on HBO Max, to be completely honest.
Oh yeah.
I've heard. I mean, I don't know, Keith. You can say I've heard that this is a movie that you should see in theaters. It's got that big screen feel.
Absolutely, especially with the way they mixed a lot of the sound and sound effects. I must say, it's going to sound wonderful with the audio as well.
Maybe I'll do it next week then. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a theatrical movie thing. This is the Batman. I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm not even going to say if I like or don't like it because I'm going to wait for that when you guys see it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Anyway, I think we've talked about Batman movies longer than some of the Batman movies we've talked about.
That's actually true.
True.
That's mathematically accurate statement.
Yeah, very good.
Anyway,
so thank you guys very much for listening. Well, yeah, that too. And I'll thank you, Keith, for joining. Also, a big shout out to Joseph and Abdullah for joining. Thank you to Chuck for that particular subject earlier, as well as shout outs again to Julian Espinoza, Luis Bonilla, Loke, Michael Kelly, Trey Wagner, and all other Patreon backers that keep this whole thing alive. Thank you, Rob, for joining me, and we'll see you all later.
Bye.